I'm sure these guys were like, "What the heck? You guys are late." And we are live. So, you guys, we have a special guest tonight, Mr. Matt Korn. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit who you are and what you're doing.
Hi. Actually, it's Matt Kahn. Matt Korn is like a weird screen name thing. Yeah. Hi. So yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Midboss. We do a couple different things in the game industry, but their most recent thing is that we put out a game called 2064 Read Only Memories, which just came out with a new update with full voice acting on PS4 and PC in January.
Oh, nice, nice. So Rambo, you want to go ahead and go in on how you guys were able to reach out to each other and bring him in here tonight?
Original thing was I saw a tweet, or I guess a screenshot of a tweet that I guess somebody from your account made where actually let me want to make sure that I read this correctly, otherwise um but I guess somebody tweeted out, says, if you voted for Trump or support his fascist regime, please don't play our game, just go fuck off. And then I guess the screenshot also included later on where you were at, somebody from your account was asking for anybody who's played the game to could possibly go review it on Metacritic, because I guess the person, I say you, just in reference to you as the account.
Yeah. Well, just for clarification, there's multiple people that run the Twitter account, but both of those tweets were from me. So,
well, that's actually even better that I mean, that happens to be the same person that made the tweet here. And then asking for people to do it because the alt-right was, I guess slamming your game on the Metacritic, which I did look through some of the, I would consider them alt-right. I mean, I don't know if I would be able to classify them as alt-right because I don't really know their viewpoints on it. But you could definitely see that people were slamming the game based solely on that tweet and the reaction from it, rather than the actual game itself. Which I feel like that is, I mean, for anybody to actually to slam your work based on your political viewpoint.
It's not so much the political viewpoint as it was how the political viewpoint was demonstrated to a group of people. It's never really based, like, I could care less if someone, supports Hillary or any one of these political candidates. I could care less of who you support. It's how you put out that message to an audience that you're expecting to garner some sort of fan base from. That's where the initial point of disinterest comes from. It's not so much of what they say or who they support, it's how they say it. The message and how you deliver it's always like 99.9% of the time the issue, not so much the message itself.
And I think on my end, I think I'd rather see people like respond with their wallets rather than fixating on these numbers that really are. I mean, on my end, they're meaningless. I don't know really on the developers' end how much that really actually affects the sales of their games on the user score.
Oh, I don't pay much attention to Metacritic ever.
Yeah, I don't either. So I don't know. I was kind of interested. I mean, I'm actually, that's one of the things. I mean, how does that Metacritic user score affect you as a developer?
so like, there's definitely a lot of things I want to talk about, but I might be putting okay. So we can revisit the kind of the initial tweet or whatever and kind of talk about what I would do differently. But the initial tweet was not necessarily like ultimately, like, even if we were, hypothetically lose half of the population and they were like, we're never going to buy your products ever again or whatever, right?
Yeah.
There's 50% of the world is still a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So that's not like what the actual like damage that I'm worried about or that I was concerned about. It was more of that, and I think this can happen with anybody, is that when you piss off, a specific group of people, they will go out of their way to kind of do this very kind of like subtle kind of obstruction, where if, whether it be, and especially now with the internet, whether that be, brigading a thing or downvoting a thing or making up fake reviews or this or that. And it happens on the right, it happens on the left. It's not like
it's a strong retaliation.
Yeah. And I think that has been more of a. I'm not concerned about obviously most people don't care about the user review scores, right? Those things have always been political. You go to the Mass Effect one, it has a 4. It's it's whatever, but and I totally get it. And I get why our game would fall into that political category where if you look at the user reviews of our game, it's either all positive or all negative. There's only one mixed. And I know for a fact that our game is a mixed game. There's no way out of those 200 reviews, only one person thought it was a mixed bag, right? And a lot of it is because people are either coming in being like, this game is a 10 because I don't like the right, or people on the right being like, this game's a 0 because I don't like people on the left. And so, I was just kind of frustrated that at least, with that second tweet about, wanting people who actually played the game to review it, it was frustrating because we worked really hard on this game to not just be some political minefield. We had hoped that it would be a product and a work of art that people would play and have strong feelings about one way or the other based on the content.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, so I'm taking your tweet following up to that, asking about the Metacritic thing and the reviews wasn't so much of trying to beg for favorable reviews, but was more of can we actually get real reviews in there rather than the fake left or the fake right reviews on both sides, and actually know what the game stands on its own.
Yeah, I mean, because I think it's just frustrating in that I think that our game, like I said, we put a lot of work into it, and I think that the reviews, we get reviews that are 5 out of 10, and we get reviews that are 9 out of 10, and it's whatever. I totally get it. If people don't like our game or they don't get it, they don't get it. But I saw the user reviews were totally out of line with what the kind of general consensus was, and I just felt man, it feels like the people who are leaving reviews on this aren't even playing the game. They're talking about things that they very clearly, if they did play the game, only played it for a very short amount of time, that they didn't get really what the game was. And it just kind of felt frustrating because again, part of why we made this game was that we wanted to make something that I thought that gamers would actually respect in terms of oh, okay, cool, even if I don't like their politics or whatever, these are people who are very clearly gamers, and they very clearly so I don't know if you guys are kind of aware of our company's history, but we also run an event called GamerX, which is GAYMERX. So it's the LGBT gay gaming event thing that we do. And we've been running that for about 5 years. And, we basically created this game out of this desire that people, when they came to our event, they were like, wow, this is really cool. What you guys are doing is this is a space that feels I can be myself here. And so we're okay, that's cool. And we were we have now the connections that we could try to make a game that kind of talks about the things that we think are really important. And we want to, and we want to show a game where it's it has, different diverse characters and stuff. And they're all presented as being meaningful characters. And that was it, right? And we thought we made a game obviously it's a visual novel. It's not that it's not the best game ever, but we thought we made a game that people would be able to be well, that's clearly not Revolution 60 or any of these games that are obviously low effort, right? And I just felt, I think it's just frustrating that we got pulled into the quagmire in terms of now we're just another part of the the new political battle of 2017, and now we're just a weird footnote battlefield.
Right, but I'm not trying to skew anything, but it seemed like you put yourselves in there with that tweet.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? It's when do you not see how you threw yourself in there?
No, totally. I mean, the thing is that we say dumb shit all the time. It's just that for whatever reason that time it just caught on.
Right. And see, the thing is it wouldn't have mattered so much had you said something against Trump, but the fact that you guys went ahead and chastised an entire community of people that supports one individual and generalizing, that's kind of where all this stuff kind of starts from, is the generalizations And this even goes all as far as back as Gamergate. Like everybody got generalized in that, and that had a huge thing, if you remember. Like it just generalizing things has never turned out good. It never turns out good for you guys. It never turns out for the community that you're hoping to get to like your game. Because your game looks pretty appealing. I like the way it looks, and it sucks that like this one tweet could easily just crumble whatever your hard work was. Like it sucks.
Well, so I mean, I think that so for let's say I'm trying to decide which point I want to hit first. So economically, it actually is like if you were just look at this like with completely emotionless, this is actually like even if like problem 1 through 10,000 for any indie game is that no one's heard of your fucking game. Right. And through this, way more people have heard of our game that even if 70% of those people were like, I'm never going to buy from this company again. We've reached more people than we would ever have if we had never made that tweet. So economically, it actually was not a bad decision. And the thing is that like we now live in a society where it doesn't matter if you're Milo or Trump, or it doesn't matter if you're Brianna Wu or anybody. If you are an agitator, like you don't lose for having people hate you. Like we live in the pro wrestling world where being a heel is like cool, right? People want people that they can hate. And so
see what he did there. He's got a wrestler in his video game.
Yeah.
But like I think that like from a business perspective, like a lot of times like the old kind of things of like unfortunately we live in a world where you kind of have to be provocative and like and whatever, just like you have to figure out a way to break through the noise. And it wasn't our goal again was not to do that tweet to get attention, but like I think looking at it from like a pure just like was this a good business decision or not, it actually has not hurt us. Like we actually have since all this drama, we definitely like, and even like today over the last day, it's like 10 times as many sales as normal. So
but you can like, so like it may not have been purpose or intentional, but like do you see anything wrong with that whole sentence?
Oh yeah, no, totally, absolutely.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
No, I mean the thing is that like when I wrote that, I was literally like in this like super dark place of like it's not because dude, like obviously, like I know people that voted for Trump. I don't think that I don't really think that any of them are like bad people. It was more of a like imagine being on a reality show and everybody like votes for you to get kicked off, and I was just like, man, this fucking sucks. Like you guys made a bad decision, and like obviously like I'm using much stronger language than like that. And I think a lot of it also comes from like I don't know. I didn't assume that anyone was gonna pick up on it. I just was like, man, I'm really frustrated, and I say stuff like that all the time on my personal channel, and I just felt like, man, like I'm not seeing a lot of brands take any kind of strong stance, and part of the reason that like we made this game was we wanted to make a game that like is our own like. So we don't have a publisher. We self-financed this game. We spent a lot of money, not a lot compared to other games. We spent a lot of money to make this game.
Yeah.
And because we made our own game, and I think that I was feeling extra petulant, I was just like, you know what? It's my company. It's my game. I don't like Trump. And if I want to say this, I can, and no one can tell me nothing. Right. And I did it. And I think looking back at it, it was just like a stupid, childish thing to say, like, because it's not a good, like, it isn't like a good idea. Like it's silly to do that. It shows like a lack of like, maturity. But I think it's also like, again, like, I don't know. I think that at the time when I said it, I was like, man, we're all going to die soon. So who cares? and I think that I've stepped back a little bit from that mental state.
All right.
Well, I mean, during that time, I mean, there was a very far right and a very far left way of thinking in regards to Trump. Like as far as like the end of the world is coming, and then the other finally the world is free type thing. It was like a very wide spectrum of thoughts.
Yeah, and no, and the thing is that like I think that I 1,000% like I totally understand why someone would have voted for Trump or felt that Hillary was so bad that any other option was like just this person can't be the president. Like I totally get it. I think like, and obviously like I'm just I'm my own data point, but I think based on what I believe is my own logical like empirical deductions based on things, I think that putting someone who has no actual government or military experience in charge of the largest nuclear arsenal in the world is like just like one example of like this is not like the math of it is so like effed up. Like yes,
Right.
I get that. You know what I mean? And it's just like stuff like that. And I was like, I think that like, man, this is, I don't know, man. Like I like, I'm just like, I was just so frustrated because I feel like I'm looking at like, we're all looking at the same thing, and I'm like, I don't understand how certain people are not seeing things the same way I'm seeing it, right? And that's like very like childish to lash out at people for not like seeing it my way. So like, yeah, like totally shouldn't have said that. And I apologize for that. And I apologize for doing that. But I just felt like, man, like I feel like we're making a really bad decision here, and I feel like we should have done like we should have not allowed this to get this far. But you know, ultimately it is what it is, and like we gotta live with it and deal with it. I mean, you know, or enjoy it, whatever.
Right. I think the most important thing here though is like I think when it comes to political indifferences, I think we need to move past the indifference itself between two people. Between well, not just two people, but like for this instance, your game versus your own political preferences, and then your Twitter. So like if we could separate business from political, that would be good. And I think this is where a lot of developers and publishers nowadays are too scared to fucking be like, hey, this is who we support. Like because they're gonna get a lot of the backlash too. So like you wouldn't be the only one in that stirring your own stew. So
because right now it's I mean, regardless of who you support or whatever, you're actually basically almost alienating the other 50% of the country.
That's the problem, though.
You
can
that's the hard
support one
part.
side. That's fine to support whoever you want to support. Just don't alienate a whole other group of people who share in the same values, but that may not necessarily agree with everything that person does. For instance, we're all Trump supporters here, right? But we don't agree with everything that fucking dumbass says. He was he was just a better of the two, in my opinion. And same with these other two.
He was just the better dumbass.
Yeah, he was the better dumbass. So like, and you like you were saying, like the whole thing of this guy being in charge of nuclear shit, like what the fuck were we thinking, right? But at the same time, it's like we have all this other shit on the other candidate, and it's like, at this point, it's quite literally betting on the lesser of the two evils, and that's what it came down to for me, anyways. But just because people vote left or right doesn't necessarily mean that they agree 110% with that person. It's just usually, hey, that's just kind of a more logical step to vote for that person than the other. That's all.
And I mean, that's kind of like where I stood on the whole thing. It just struck me as odd, and it was actually refreshing. Were you the one talking on the Twitter today, back and forth with me?
Yeah, most likely.
Okay. It was actually refreshing because most of the time, because I took a screenshot of your tweet and then tagged you in it, and then you responded, and that sense because I mean that like we had Man Bear, whatever his name was, with
Man Bear
with BioWare, that was tweeting out some awful stuff. But I mean, as soon as you actually even questioned or even tried to talk to him, he'd block you. Other people within the
I think it's just tough because I think that like whenever like a thing happens, right, and you get all these people who are kind of coming at you at once, it's really tough to like make these like snap decisions of like, oh, this person's coming from a good place, right? Because generally a lot of people, they're just trying to troll you, or they're just trying to get under your skin. And so I think it does take some patience to be able to like look through and be like, okay, like looking through this person's feed, like they're obviously like a real, like, this is not a troll account. They're obviously like trying to engage or understand what we're doing, right? And I think that's tough. I think that like especially when you get like, because dude, I've been doing this for like 5 years in like the kind of semi-political gaming space, and from like the Westboro Baptist Church to Milo, like we've got we've seen it all over the last couple of years, and I mean it's just like you kind of like start seeing patterns of like, okay, like and it's tough. I think it can be tough because there are people that like, it's like when there was that whole Gamergate Blockbot thing where people were getting frustrated that like people who didn't feel like they deserved to be on that were getting blocked. And I think that there is a problem like that, and there is a problem with that technology of that, like it might have been too it cast too wide a net, right? But I mean, I think it can be tough too, because again, when you get like tons and tons of abuse, you're just like, man, I just want it to go away. So you'd be like, I'd rather be cast too wide a net, and piss more people off and have my sanity. I mean, for me, I'm just like pretty like I don't get as rattled, so I kind of just like I'm like okay, like and I've just like I've already had the whole like 4chan has done a whole like you know they've gone through my entire history and like posted every picture they could find of me to try to like dig up dirt on me. And after that, I was like, man, if that's the worst that like they got on me, then I guess I'm not such a bad person.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a fair point. I never really thought about it on that end. Is that whereas I'm a one person like coming at your account, there could be a million people coming at your account. So I mean, going through your mentions and trying to figure out which one's actually a legit talking to you would be kind of hard. It would be kind of frustrating to deal with all that. So I never really thought about it on that end though.
Well, like even today was a good example. I mean, as soon as this guy was tweeting out to our audience, I mean, my Twitter blew up today. I was tagged in like over 200 plus posts in the matter of like an hour. So like I understand it. Like I get, you know, not wanting to go and click on every freaking one because there's a ton there. Shit. Like I was surprised to see these guys actually talk to you. In fact, vice versa.
Yeah, same here. I mean, actually, yeah, whenever he actually engaged with me and actually had the conversation, and there was, like I said, a couple of my followers that were jumping in and actually coming in kind of like really harsh towards him. But no matter what he did, he actually handled it like with respect. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, this is a person that actually is open, you know, has the same kind of mindset as us, but is on the opposite side.
Right, and that's fine.
You're willing to have that open, dialogue, and that actually is very rare in today's spectrum. I mean, today it's either you either believe like me or you don't. You know that, and I don't really give a shit if you don't. I don't give a shit why you don't.
And here's the thing for me. Like I've been disowned. I have been hated on because of who I voted for. I've got people that cut me out of their lives. So I know what it's like to be chopped off at the neck for explaining to somebody what they believe in. And for me to like go through that and hate that, why would I do this to these guys? Like I'm not going to do that to you, Matt. There's no point in chopping you at the neck. You know what I mean? Like how are we going to actually have any like honest dialogue or have a good conversations on the point of origins when it comes to what we believe in? And I think that's what's going on today is like too many people nowadays are too busy focusing on what's far left or what's far right without actually talking to each other. And because at the end of the day, we all got to live in this fucking shit bucket together anyways. We might as well try to get a fucking along. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that like, you know, I think that part of this whole election, like, and there's a like, if we survive all this, I think that history books are going to look back in this and write chapters and chapters and books and books and books about all the intricacies of this election, because it's a lot of things coming in at once, where it's like the globalism versus like nationalism. It's the the effect of people getting either red feeds or blue feeds, where when when you log on to Facebook, when I log on to Facebook, we both have the same technology behind the messenger, but the feeds we're getting are very, 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 very different, right? Yep. So like 10, 20 years ago, we both watched the same CBS News or whatever, right? But now the data that you're getting and the data that I'm getting are wildly different. So you may completely
even down to I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Even down to traditional paperback media. There was the same article by the same company that was being they had a screen cap of both these papers together, and the East Coast and the West Coast are getting completely different stories with the same article.
Yeah, right. And I think that like ultimately, like, I I try not to hate on capitalism too much, but ultimately I think this is a product of capitalism, and that like these companies like Facebook and Twitter, they don't care about ethics or making sure that the world's a good place. They care about making money, and they make money by you spending more time on their site. And you're going to spend more time on their site if the content is pleasing to you and it agrees with your mindset and your worldview, right? So their whole like job is to continue to feed you your propaganda. It doesn't matter if it's left or right or Bernie stuff or whatever, right? It doesn't matter what your propaganda is. Like these websites are like propaganda machines, and they just continue to like give you this echo chamber of information. And so for myself, like I'm one of the most conservative people that I know in terms of like my like cohorts here in the Bay Area. So when I put that tweet out, I thought that I was just like, man, all I'm seeing is all these other people say much, stronger things. I was like, man, I should say something. Like I want to, use my voice to say something, right? And even if it was not the appropriate thing to say, like I just felt like, I have a voice. I shouldn't be cowardly. I should say something.
Right.
But it turned out, and I think the same with this whole election, is that like just because our circles, or just because everybody on the left just assume that like Hillary is going to win, right? Because they're not getting that information, like the same information that the right gets. So the right, like, I think there's a lot of information, like, and when the facts of reality come in, it blindsides people because it doesn't necessarily align with the data that they've been like, be given. So yeah, I think that like it's a really tough world, because I think that people don't want to have conversations at all, and I think that there is a lot of like personal like feelings, right? Where it's like, so one of the people who works on person's people, whatever. One of the persons who is a developer on Read Only Memories, he is Mexican and he lives in Mexico, and just some of the effect of kind of this last year and how things have changed, socially, politically, whatever. And it just felt like, he was very hurting from like this sucked. It sucked to be like seen as a third class person, right? In certain ways. And so I was like, man, I hate this. I hate that, like, and I felt frustrated that like, man, like I don't know. And again, it's all these like different like personal experiences that add up to go like, man, I'm gonna lash out in this way. And again, like, it totally wasn't appropriate, but yeah, and yeah. Sorry, I didn't really have a strong point.
No, do you think that in some aspects, like the companies themselves, whether it be yours or Pepsi or any of these companies, should, as far as their companies go, stay out of the political spectrum as far as these type of tweets or showing support for one or the other, and kind of keep the companies as a neutral point, whereas the the people running them or the people behind them have their own little personal accounts and everything, can be free to do their own, the political thing, but keep these companies away from going strongly one way or the other for or against whoever it is that might be coming up in the future.
Well, I mean, I think that like, when it comes to like a bigger company, right, where they have shareholders or they're a C corporation, when you have shareholders, your like mission statement is to maximize value and it's to make money. And so like, yeah, I don't think it's in their interest. And I think that for most companies, right, if your job is, I mean, if your goal is to make money, then yeah, then clearly no. We started this company not as a necessarily political statement, but we wanted to make this company to make, games better for queer gamers. And that was like that was like kind of our like mission statement. Like, yeah, we would love to make money, we'd love to get famous or whatever. But if we can make the gaming world a better place for gay gamers, then like that's our like real goal. And so because of that, and because like everyone on the team has a similar kind of political leaning, and we all felt like we all were in agreement of this, I don't think it's necessarily the same thing as like a rogue community manager being like, fuck Trump or this or that, because that's just like one person going rogue, right? I do feel like I think that, so I don't think that necessarily that brands or companies should stay out of politics, especially when something goes very strongly against their stated interests, where because we are a very our organization is very progressive, and we were seeing a lot of things that went against a lot of our core values.
Wait, how is the sorry how is the gaming world bad for gay people? Because like 1 in every 4 gamers I meet are gay or bi-curious. I mean,
well,
so
but that's the correlation there. Well, I think there's no correlation there. I think that there's tons. You're absolutely right in that there's tons of gay or bi-curious or bi folks that are in the gaming world at like 100%. And I think that like, dude, like, okay, like, don't get me wrong, I think the video games are like the best thing ever. Like, like that's my life. I don't think that, because there's a mixture of things that have led us to this point. But because the original marketing for video games was mostly aimed at younger boys in America, and it came from a very conservative kind of Japanese base, it has traditionally skewed to be a slightly more conservative culture in gaming, right?
Oh.
And I think that, up until the last 5-10 years, there were very, very few games that had a gay character in it in any way, if that weren't complete jokes or didn't allow you to, romance a character. Like there was no like gay.
Why does a game
options at all.
even need a gay character or a straight character or a transvestite character? I mean, why does that even matter?
Well, so I mean, the thing is that like games are stories, right? So like, yeah, like if it was Pac-Man or like even like let's say Call of Duty, right? Where if their sexuality doesn't matter, then yeah. But like if you make a game and it involves anyone's life, like if you date if they have a wife, then they're straight, right? Like so like being gay, like queerness and gayness is like it's part of reality. I mean, like even with like Nier or like where he's like, yeah, I have trans characters in the game because they exist in reality. Like it's not a political statement, it's just a fact like of life, right? So I just put them in the game. Same with Earthbound. Like a toy was like, I made Jeff gay because I know gay people and whatever, right? And I think that like there isn't. I would like to just see more of that because I think that when you are a gay, like as someone, if you grow up being a gay gamer or a trans gamer or let's say a black gamer or a female gamer or whatever, right? Anything that isn't the dominant like kind of group, if you don't really see yourself reflected in the media that you play, it's not that it's like the end of the world or anything, but it just kind of sucks because you kind of like get this. It sort of sends this message that you're not. It's not really made for you, and you're not really welcome there. And I think that like no one like for us, like I'm strongly against like people going and being like, you need to change your games or this or that. Like that's when we made our own game. Like we people say if you don't like the games, why don't you make your own game? We did it. We made our own game. Like I'm not like trying to like harsh on anyone's artistic creativity. But overall, I think that like in the larger picture, I think it would be great if we had more diverse characters and stuff. Like if just for the fact that we live in a diverse world of people who play games and they want to see themselves in the games they play.
Right. Okay. So that's fair enough. But you can't.
Yeah,
okay, I was just gonna say this real quick, Rambo. Sorry.
But
can
no,
you,
go ahead.
Can you see though? Can you see how, like, so like this is how I'm looking at it. I see that there's a lot of issues. Sure, that as a society we need to move past and we need to like get over a lot of things, right? And the only way to do that is to start introducing newer things into these gaming cultures to get them to be more normalized around the things that are just, well, not that's considered normal in their own life view. So can you see where it would be overstepping on a developer side to make a statement such as that to be, well, since there's no gay people in here, we're gonna put one in here, like, you know what I mean? Like,
that is pretty redundant, if you ask me.
I mean, there's a difference between, hey, we have a gay character, and you're making it obvious because you want to make it obvious through social media, or you could just put one in there, not say anything, and see what the community says about that person's character. For instance, Far Cry 4, best fucking gay character in any game I've ever played, ever. That motherfucker is demented as shit. And he's hilarious. I love him. He is.
Oh yeah,
right.
he was.
No, but I think that we're asking for the same things here. I mean, I think that what you're saying is that you want like nuanced gay characters. Like they're not just like, hi, I'm the gay character. And I think that like that's what we want.
They're gay or not.
Right,
dude.
right.
No, but the thing is that even think that back to like The Last of Us, where like Bill is like this crazy fucking dude who's like locked down his shit, and you find out he's like, oh yeah, he had a boyfriend and he like hung himself because Bill like went crazy, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Like that's fucking rad. It's cool because right. That's real, and it's also nuanced. It's not like it's like they didn't make a big thing about him being gay. It's just there, and that's cool. I think that's what we want. But like also you got to keep in mind that these games that have had this content, it's only been the last like 5-10 years. Growing up, like as you know, I'm coming up on 30 now. Like growing up with game like where you never really saw yourself. I think that younger gamers have it a million times better than it was.
They've been around. They've been around longer than that. No, there's been quite a few gay scenarios taking place in video games, even back in the day. Even when I'm 34, so like I understand where you're coming from, but there have been since we were kids that gay characters have taken place in video games. I think the thing is there's too many people that want to make it so goddamn apparent. They want to rub it in people's faces, versus like you said. Not so like nuanced to where like you're just going to be like rubbing it and being it passive, making characters, having their backstories. I think that to me would be the best bet instead of making it an issue. And when you make it an issue, that's where you get opposition from. And when you have the opposition, that's where you get the clash, and that's where we have two different mindsets fighting over each other's bullshit because, hey, somebody said, hey, there's a gay character in it. You know, like, it's kind of dumb. It's retarded if you think about it.
I mean, most of these characters in any of these games can be silhouettes for all I care. That's not what draws me in.
But
no, it's the actual story told around them.
Really, but the thing is that like I honestly I think that the problem is language, right? Where like we all talk about, like, we all love games, right? But we like technically Gone Home is a game, and technically Dark Souls 3 is a game, right?
Yeah.
But like no one would confuse them as being a similar game, right?
I don't even know why you're calling Gone Home a game, but anyway.
well, because you know, I think that it depends on, like, I think that we appreciate different things in games. So you may not care for the story, right? You could be like, I don't give a shit if they're gay or trans or whatever. Like, I don't fucking care. I want it to be a good game. And like, what you really mean is that you want good mechanics. You want a game that like mechanically feels good. You don't give a shit. Like the story and narration is not very important.
Maybe to a general crowd, maybe that's what you're describing, but not to us. Like, no, I mean, love character building.
No, I'm sorry. I meant to the one individual who was like, man, I don't care at all, right? So like,
do you think because Tracer and Overwatch is gay, more people play Overwatch? Because I really don't think so.
But that's not. I don't think that it doesn't matter if more or less people play it. It makes her a more 3D character. It makes her like, it's just another part of her.
Exactly. It adds more, you know, I guess backstory or whatever to her character and more personality. But do you think that matters to any Overwatch player?
I think absolutely. It absolutely matters to people.
Some people.
I think some people. I think there's some people who don't give a shit, and that's the great thing about, like, if you don't give a shit, just then who cares? Ignore it.
But you see like where the divide is, though, right? Where it's, let's make it apparent or let's not make it apparent. If you make it apparent, it depends, and like I said earlier, it's not so much the message; it's how the message is delivered to people.
It's kind of like they're forcing the idea, because there was this whole narrative like so and so is not represented in games, so and so is not represented in games, and it goes to the point to where, like, instead of just like having them, I mean, you can like there was a thing where Black people aren't represented in games. Well, you can name several games where Black people are, you know, in games. But then it all becomes like, well, they're not represented in this way. Well, then all of a sudden, like another game is to where like they force this character, and then they basically tried to announce it as, here is like the token game for that thing, and it's like they're forcing that mindset in there, rather than the fact of like just creating The Last of Us, like that gay character. If they would have made even Ellie gay or Joel, and then, you know, just told the story just the same way it was, and then later on we find out he's gay.
I don't think it would have been a problem at all.
No big deal, because I mean, it's like the story is still just being told as it is, and there's no big hoopla about who's gay and who's not gay, and then all of a sudden it just happens. And whereas it seemed like with Overwatch, like it's almost like it was she was made gay almost to fill a narrative within the society.
Yeah, there's a term. Well, okay, so this isn't exactly what you're describing, but there's a lot of Tracer being gay actually has had a lot of criticism from the gay community.
Yeah,
I think that a lot of people felt that there's a word called queer baiting, where you kind of like don't like really like, they felt like Overwatch was especially like, look, all these characters are kind of gay, but not really, and you know, and to kind of make this announcement via comic strip felt a little like they weren't really going all in on it. They
pretty much disingenuous.
A little, sort of. That's a strong word, but yeah, like, and I think that like, I do think there is some level of like, why wasn't it just like revealed initially? Like, it kind of felt a little revealy. So yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you guys on that end.
Now, going back to like something that you said earlier about, like, you know, as far as like who games are marketed to, like how, you know, how from the conservative Japanese company, I'm a little bit older than, like, I guess everybody else here, but I mean, you do realize that these consoles were actually marketed towards everybody at one point. It's just that whenever the sales figures came back, is that more boys bought them. They weren't originally in the
boy section,
because they don't come in.
Yeah,
we've talked about this.
I'm not attacking the pragmatism of the business decisions.
Well, no, I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying that the reason why like the gaming community is like it is because of how the consumers responded way back in the day. And now the more the numbers have changed, the more the numbers are changing, the more you're starting to see like different changes, like, and it's subtle changes, like you have Horizon Zero Dawn, where it didn't feel like she was like a forced hero, where she tried to fit a narrative as a.
But so the thing is though, is that there's a lot of people who did feel that way, who were like, oh, well, this game is an SJW game because of who the protagonist is. And so I think that you may not have even felt this way 5 years ago. I think that part of what's been really positive over the last, like, look, like, again, like, I think games are great, and I have no problem with older games.
Oh, you're fine.
But yeah. I think that, you know, over the last 5 to 10 years, I think that we've actually seen like some real like major progress of just more people kind of like being aware when they're making their games of like, oh, like, you know, it isn't. There are a wide variety of people who play our games, even if it is, you know, potentially like mostly male or whatever. That, you know, it's not just them that are playing our games, and just kind of be a little bit like mindful of that.
To me, only people that are filled with hate or just downright like horrible people, in my opinion, are the ones that are going to care whether there's a black or white or Mexican or gay or transsexual in a game, because color,
I agree with that.
Yeah, race or sexuality does not matter to me. Like I said, these characters could be silhouettes. I don't care. I mean,
I look at it this way: like if you play a game in today's modern era, right, and the first thing that comes to your mind is, there's no gay guys here, there's no black people here, there's no Mexicans, like you gotta really wonder, like, why are you playing that game? You know,
no, but nobody, like, the thing is, nobody goes into, like, anyone who goes into that is like an idiot. No one, I don't think anyone goes into those games thinking that way. I think that, like,
I would like to think that too. I'm right there with you.
No, I mean, but I think that, like, it's a nuanced thing where it's like, okay, like for myself, like right now I'm playing Persona 5.
Yeah.
And Persona 5 is a story about, like, Persona has always been about like weird kids who don't really fit in high school. And they've always like had gay stuff in it, sort of.
Yeah, they kind of did, yeah.
But it's never really been handled that well, right? And so there's a lot of people who, you know, we just talk on Twitter, like being like, man, like, I hope that they handle it well. I hope that there's a good gay character in it, whatever, right? Like, ultimately, like, I'm playing through it, and I'm not like gonna like be like, I'm not gonna play this game because there's no gay characters in it, or like they make fun of gays in it. Like, I don't care. Like, I mean, it sucks that, like, it's, again, that like we're like not given the same like level of, I guess, respect or like attention. That would be cool. But like, I'm not gonna let it like stop me from enjoying the game. I'm not, and like,
that's good. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, no, that's good, because I'm glad you said that, because I'm not sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're aware. Media has a spin on things to people where they will sit there and they will do that. The media will literally spin as much story, and they have spun as much story when it comes to the transgender or the gay or the LGBTQ community. And that's where people get their misinformation from. Look at the mainstream media. I mean, nowadays look at the whole Target situation. Should I say more? I mean, you had bullshit when you and I know that there was good intentions there, but everybody else painted it as this demonized thing. Like, it was fucking stupid. It was like, God, really, people? Like, we're actually looking at trying to like move things forward, and you guys are trying to move us 30 steps backwards.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, this is so like just total aside, but like, people who are trans right now in this country have it like way worse than anyone else in LGBT. But like, they have it super tough right now, and it's tough because a lot of the things that like the debates and stuff are about are things that are like deeply ingrained in our society, right? Like, we have men's and women's restrooms. Like, those things are physically built into buildings, right? It's not as easy as just turning on a switch. Thing? No, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that, like, that, like, if we as a society decided that we're gonna make it all like net neutral or whatever, right? It literally like is not logistically possible, right? Like, we built our society around certain things. There's men and women's clothing sections, right? So it's like while even if we were all to be on the same wavelength and be like, we all feel the same way about this, we can't just make a change like that, right?
I agree. Yeah.
And so that's where this tension comes from, because I think there is a lot of people that are like, cool, I don't care if you're trans or whatever, like whatever, but like in this shared space we have X, Y, or Z. And I think it's tough because a lot of those things where if we had built our society thinking about these, like if we had built all these buildings and built all these laws with the knowledge of how, you know, our culture would change, we could make a better base of laws that are,
absolutely,
you know what I mean? Like, but because it's all deeply ingrained into things, deeply ingrained into how we make, you know, what we sell and all these things, like it's not so easy as like with gays and lesbians, where it's just like, okay, well, it's just like a man and a man, but they're getting married. Like it's basically the same thing.
No, I agree. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that like politically, it's going to be, we as a culture are going to have some really tough conversations that I don't know if we're mature enough as our community yet to like have these conversations about.
No, it's good.
Just real quick, I'm back. My internet decided to take a shit like in the middle of.
All right, cool. So I have a question. I have a question that somebody wants to ask, and I'm pretty sure it's pointed, but we're gonna go with it anyways. Matt, you okay with this?
Sure. Well, I don't know what it is, but yeah, sure.
All right. So this is by one of our viewers. He asks, and he asked me a while ago, but we got into the conversation. If somebody tells you to fuck off for your political views, would you still buy their game?
If it was really good, yeah. I mean, like, I don't think, like, I don't know. And that doesn't really happen, but like, I don't know. Okay, so you know, what's his face? Palmer Luckey, right? Like, he put a lot of money into Trump. Like, a lot of people who I know were like, I'm never gonna buy Oculus stuff. Like, fuck that guy, or whatever, right? And like, you know, I think that like he didn't directly come out and be like, fuck you to me. But I mean, I think that like to a lot of people who supported him or the VR community, it felt like a slap in the face, right? Because it's like we gave you money and you turned around and used that money to support someone that we felt what goes against our interests, right? But that didn't stop me from working on, like, I'm working on a VR game in Oculus. I mean, like, ultimately, like, if the product is good or it's a thing, like, it is what, like, you know, I have I pick and choose my battles. Like, I'm not gonna like immediately, like, there's a lot of things that I don't want to support, but like I do it because if it's good, then sure. So yeah, I mean, I think that if our game was that good, which I don't think it's that good, if you're really that offended by the tweet, then yeah, like I don't think the game is so good that you're gonna be like get over that. But I mean, I think that if the game was good and you're like, yeah, like whatever, like it sucks that we're not on the same political wavelength, but
yeah,
like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would kind of like, I think it would show a lot of maturity, I think, to be able to be like, okay, well, the developer's of like a fucking idiot, but I can still enjoy his game, right? Like, I don't need to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Oh, no. I mean, I was just gonna say, like, there's a lot of like actors or like musicians that are like total pricks, right? And you could choose to be like, well, they're insane and they say like wild, you know, awful shit, and so I'm gonna punish myself by not enjoying their music or their stuff. And like, you know, ultimately, like, there's a lot of people who I wish it'd be nice if they acted right, but you know, it's also like they're individuals and they gotta do them.
No. Right. Was that like with me? I like with the whole Mass Effect thing. I actually made it a point to where the way it all went down. I think that if it hadn't gone down to the very end the way it did, I might have could have possibly changed my mind. But when they were like aware of the whole Manver situation, and they didn't do anything, didn't say anything at all. At the end of the game, when it released, and this lady's name came out, that she was the whole facial animator or whatever, and she ended up getting hate on Twitter. And then BioWare puts out a statement going, "We don't support any hatred or any sort of like we don't we don't like bullying, we don't like harassment, we don't like any of that type of stuff, and to please quit this, it's not her fault, to leave her alone." And I found that to be really rich from them, considering the fact that you have a guy like literally calling for the death of white people, and you do nothing about it this whole time. Granted, I guess maybe their cost outweighed saying anything. But at the same time, is like that was like a really slap in the face to like a very large demographic within the United States or within the world, actually.
Well, so I think that there's a bit of a disconnect in terms of I think that when someone like him says that, he's not saying that literally, and I think that what he doesn't understand, and what that may BioWare or whatever they don't understand, is that people are taking it literally, right? And whether or not there's like whether or not it's literal is not important. It's the fact that like if he's saying something that is like if people are going to take that as like, man, like this person literally doesn't respect my life at all, and whatever, and that's like there's a line there that's been crossed. I think it's important that like we all have to get on the same like wavelength in terms of like understanding that like I think that like I guarantee you that he does not actually want. I don't know, right? I don't know. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but
well, no, I mean, I would agree with you, or I would love to agree with you on that. But that whenever you reached out to him to actually ask him his opinion and actually ask him legitly what's going on, his immediate response was to block all white people. And that, I mean, he actually tweeted that out too. Is like if he looks at your profile and can tell that you're white, he's going to block you. And so he's closed that door on being able to realize if his tweets were satirical, or if they had an underlying meaning or anything like that, because he's mainly said you read my tweets at face value, and so his tweets can only be read in a literal sense.
Yeah, no, I mean I think that again, like I don't want to necessarily like like it's his business, so I'm not trying to like defend him or anything. But like I think that like it's also like, dude, I think that Twitter and like this messaging, like the way that this whole thing works is like, so when an internet, I don't want to call it a mob. I'm not trying to use pointed words. When an internet like group or community or Chan board or whatever is like, we're gonna do like Chan investigations and we're gonna try to dig up dirt on someone, right? Like what they find may or may not be true, and generally, like a lot of times, like they find stuff on people, right? And then they go about it. And then when they have to kind of know what comes along with like when you like publish someone's name and be like, this is the person that we're gonna go after. Like there's a lot of people like yourselves and a lot of good people who are just like, yeah, like what they're doing is wrong, or we should talk about it, and by talking about it we can come to a better position of like what we all want to be at. But what's tough, and I think it's especially tough, because if you don't get the abuse or whatever, on a regular basis, I think it can be tough to kind of like, for someone like him, like he might be under extreme like stress where he's like, I am really like trying to ship this game, and I have all these people who are like, are sending me hundreds of really nasty things. You get to a point where you go, man, I don't want to deal with any of this, right? Like fuck it all. And like that's obviously not like the mature, like calm thing to say or do, but like I think it could be like, I think you just need to have I had a lot of trouble empathizing with a lot of these celebrities in quotations in the past until I was on the receiving end, and I think it's very like, it can feel very devastating to have like to go from, I get like 10 20 like tweets a day to getting literally like thousands within a 24-hour period, some of which are genuinely just like, I don't understand why you do this thing, or like it's really dumb, but a lot of them are like, kill yourself, or like whatever, da da da. And it just like, when you get tons and tons and tons of negative messages, it like wears on your soul, and it's really hard to describe, and it can come off to people who are looking from the outside as like, look at that like whiny snowflake baby, but it's not like like one or two people being like, you fucking suck, like who cares, right? But when it's like thousands and it's like all this stuff, I think it can drive someone like super crazy. And so, not defending anything he said, because again, I'm not him. I think that it's like, when you get that hate train on you, again, no matter who you are, no matter what side, it can go. I think it can really drive people like nutso.
I think it can in that sense, but I mean, in that same breath, I mean, with the way they handle the situation, I was a very big advocate, and I actually lived up to that. Is that I to buy the game used, so that way the developer saw no money of it. The GameStop or Best Buy or wherever you bought the game used got to see all the money for to be able to experience that game. Because I feel like that these companies should be held responsible for like the in a way of what their employees say. I mean, I know that I know when I go to work at Walmart, or my wife actually works at Walmart, and if she is caught out doing something that makes Walmart look disparaging, even if it's on her own personal time, she can be fired. And I feel like so many times that these like that right there, what he was doing made BioWare looked, disparaging. And I feel like that too many times, like that in the society, like we just either give them a pass or we don't stand on any sort of ground. And I feel like that was the stance I was going to take, and I feel like that I really promoted that on my channel and within my Twitters to buy the game used if you're on PC. That then if you have a way to pirate it, then pirate it if you want to actually do it, because I feel like that's the only way these companies are ever actually going to learn is by affecting their wallet.
No, and I think that like you have the right idea in terms of like you're totally right. We live in a capitalist like society, and you vote with your wallet. Like the thing that if you truly are offended by or you want to teach a company a lesson, like that is how you do it, and that like that's rad. I mean, what I think is tough is that like um so let's just say that like even if they did have grounds to fire this person, I think that it's very very dangerous to set a precedent where if the so you guys remember the Allison Rapp thing at Nintendo, right?
Yeah, where she
Yeah,
Yeah, the prostitute thing
yeah,
or whatever.
right. So people dug up this dirt on her because they didn't like so from the way I understand it, she had said some things that some people didn't like, and so they chose to dig up dirt on her, and they found dirt on her, and so Nintendo they presented that dirt to Nintendo, and Nintendo basically fired her based on the things that they found. So while they had a cause to do so, the actual like intent of why they dig up the dirt, right, was not like, oh, by the way, we just stumbled upon this thing. They were looking for dirt. They were looking to try to like you know harm this person's career because they said something or did something that they didn't like. So they're going out of their way to like fuck with someone's like life and like career. I think that in that same way, like I think that even if they felt like what he was doing was disparaging the company, if they feel that the reason why people are coming after him or them is not from like a good place of like we're actually fans of your game and we're concerned that this is behavior is not X, Y, or Z, but instead if it's kind of coming from this like we don't like him because of whatever. I think that they are afraid to set a precedent where they go, yeah, we're gonna let this guy go because then people who do that are gonna feel even more empowered to be like,
yeah, it
let's go dig up dirt on more people.
it basically allows social media to determine who gets hired and who doesn't. I see your point on that, but um, it's hard for like with this. It was very hard to draw like a parallel between Allison and Men Bear because of the fact that Allison, like you said, originally the whole originality of the reason was not really a reason for her to be fired. Whereas like they then in turn went on a witch hunt for her, and actually, I mean they ultimately she definitely shouldn't really be working in that type of industry. Like, but I mean that's neither here nor there. That should have been up to Nintendo to find out. But now when it comes back to like Manbear, like it's not like that he just tweeted these every once in a while. Like this was years worth of tweets. And I feel like that him knowing these tweets were there and BioWare was trying to, I guess, make a statement in a sense. A different type of statement than I really would hope for. That like maybe they were saying that um, we're looking for people like that are left leaning, and it doesn't really matter how left leaning you are as long as you just don't like the other side. That. And that's because I mean, if you look at the people that they had employed, because they hired a bunch of new people because it's a whole new team, but the people that they employed, if you look into them, um, they all share a very similar political interest.
Well,
Whether
but I mean, I think that like let's just like step back and look at if you just were to look at the situation like I'm the CEO of Blizzard and you're to go, what's going to get me out of this, like, this conundrum, like the cheapest and least, like, how can I get out of this the easiest? Do you think that if they fired him, don't you think that that would have caused them way more headaches than by not firing him?
Well,
Maybe.
In two ways, yes. Paying unemployment, right? So unemployment, and then having to find somebody to replace him.
That's not the problem. I mean, like, those are
those
like,
are the main things that I would think.
I
mean,
don't those that's nothing. Like, that's pennies. The big thing is the PR problem of going, like, we had this group of, like, we basically caved in. Like, the narrative would be that they caved in to pressure from trolls to fire one of their people of color who spoke up on racial issues, right? And the narrative would be extreme. Like, it would be very, very, very bad for them.
If that's what had happened, yes.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
but
that's not. But that's not
The facts
what.
don't matter.
Yes, they do. That's
But no,
not what,
but I'm saying it doesn't matter in terms of what the narrative will be spun as.
If it's from the source, then yes, it would. Because
but
you got to remember, man, like these same people that go through all these troubles to, like, get people fired like that, they're the same ones that will have a fan site up or a game site, or they're probably fellow publishers or developers that will talk to the industry. I mean, I've done PR for quite some time where I've had stories told to me about developers that I didn't even know. So you know what I mean? Like the words will spread, is what I'm saying.
But the thing is that, like, I kind of think that, like, we're entering into this, like, range of, like, outlaw of, like, these people are like these, like, outlaw gatekeepers where they go, so it wasn't that. Okay, I'm gonna do a broad generalization. It's gonna be really tough. I'm probably
No, you're fine.
not gonna like.
No, you're okay.
But, like, part of the issue with, like, the whole Gamergate thing as it kind of came out was not that they were like, we need to look into this person, we need to look into this person. Why was this person getting this thing? It was that all the people that they were targeting to be like, we need to, like, investigate these people, and, like, they would always find, like, everybody has dirt. It doesn't matter who you are. If you've done anything in the industry, generally, like, people party, they drink, they take pictures doing stuff, they sleep with people. Like, it's not that fucking weird. Everybody, like, so you can always dig up shit on people. And it seemed like the people that they were digging stuff up on was disproportionately gay people, queer people, people who were, like, on the left. It didn't seem like people. It was just like, oh, like, we're just gonna, like, try to make things like we're this is fair.
Has
this
this
like
seriously turned into like a gay discrimination thing?
No.
No. I know what he's talking about. No, go ahead and continue.
I'm saying that if you were to take a look at the empirical evidence of, like, here's, like, just pick, like, the top targets, it almost always was either women or gay people or people of color or whatever, right? And again, it wasn't that, like,
you're talking right now about why Gamergate split up. That's why Gamergate split up. I was part of Gamergate. I was part of the whole beginning process of Gamergate. Me and a few others were trying to get hardcore facts. This guy was gay or this person.
Right. You
know what I mean? But
I totally, like, dude, yeah. I got in trouble for defending Gamergate initially because I was like, yeah, like, I don't, like, I think that some of the stuff they're doing is fucking horrendous, but I also, like, I can see why certain people be like, I totally get it, right? And people were like, no, you need to be 100% against it or else you're out of, like, the fucking left, right? And I was like, okay, whatever, So, but I think that there is a, like, level of, like, it just seemed like the people, like, if you guys were really wanting to defend the game industry, like, there's real shit that goes down, like, on the high level. But you guys don't want to go after that. It seemed like you just wanted to go after, like, we don't like this guy because he disagrees with our political interests, or this person is annoying and has ugly hair and is whatever. And I'm like, you don't really want to go after the big fish. You just want to go after the people that you don't personally like, or the people that you think don't really belong in the game industry and are, like, taking.
Right. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit there and act like I'm, like, all holier than thou. Like, I was part of a lot of issues myself. I helped start. In fact, that's why me and Zoe never got along, was because of that stupid shit. But now that I've gotten older and I've looked back at it, I mean, there's a lot of shit I wish I could have done differently. But overall, you are essentially talking about what pretty much killed Gamergate in itself. Was like they killed themselves, because there's a lot of people like us that finally, they snapped out of it. In other words, we snapped out of it and we were going for the higher ups, where everybody else was still focusing on the Zoe Quinn and Five Guys and Fries and all that bullshit that went on forever. And we were trying to focus on actual issues like why did these guys at this studio get underpaid, and how come this CEO all of a sudden takes all their money and fucking leaves? We were trying to focus on shit like that, you know what I mean?
Right. No, and that's the thing, and that's what the game industry actually needs.
Yeah,
like we actually do need like industry watchdogs. And the thing is, a lot of times, like like people, no one should be immune to it. Like it doesn't matter if you're fucking queer or trans, and like if you're doing bad shit, you're doing bad shit. But the thing is that like it just seems like if you really cared, you'd go after the tough fucking shit. You go after the people who are embezzling, money, or like like there's tons of companies, especially on the Japanese side. Like I fucking there's actual literal just payola that is like it's real, and no one, like, everyone ignores it because
nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
I think with Gamergate, and the reason why you saw that is because just like with anything, I mean, it started with like basically a hashtag.
It was reactionary.
And then you had the actual people that were legit in there, and then of course once they saw that it took off, then of course the trolls attached to it, and the trolls got more attention than the actual people that were trying to actually do something, to do something, to make changes. And I think that's where the trolls and stuff and the fringe elements of the Gamergate was going after, like and staying stuck on like Zoe Quinn and Brianna Wu and stuff like that. They were focused in on them, and they stayed on them rather than actually.
Right, and the thing is that like
usually the loud minority usually overshadows the actual true majority.
Right, and I've always been of the mindset like whether it be Brianna Wu or Nero, like these people, like you don't just fucking don't pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Like they're just like trying to like fucking rile shit up, and it's a profitable endeavor to do so.
Oh yeah.
Sadly it is. I mean that's what our world is kind of like exacerbated these type of people to the point of like stardom almost.
Well, it's all based on reactionary shit. Like everything was reactionary. My stupidity and all that was reactionary. I didn't think logically first. I didn't come at it with a clear head. I went at it as, what? I'm a fucking gamer. I got attacked. What the fuck was my issue? Like, what did I do? And then I got people in
kind of like his tweet.
Right. It's all reactionary. Yeah, it's all reactionary. Yeah, and that's why I think we all need to be better than that. I think as I come into my years, as I get older, I look back at all the shit that I was a part of, and I'm like, God, I was a fucking idiot. I look back at how me and Zoe got into it a few times on some chats. I was like, geez, I was kind of a dick. I was like, I could have handled that better. I could have done so much better. And the more important thing is I'm doing better now. So I'm hoping in the future that when shit like this happens, we can at least talk about it instead of like fucking trying to bring somebody to the death penalty, for fuck's sakes. Jesus Christ.
Well, the important thing is you learn from your mistakes, but regardless if you're from the tweet or from your actions in Gamergate, I think the important part is like learning from that and having these type of conversations here to where you end up like it doesn't necessarily build like a complete bridge towards each other, but it's at least a stepping stone in that right direction.
Right, keep us from redoing the same shit again in the future.
Yeah, I mean, because there's no point in reliving Gamergate or
God, hell no.
reliving the I forgot what came before Gamergate, but reliving all those bad times. I mean, like it's I think that conversation is like a starting point to where you can actually to build that and actually be able to create a relationship to where you don't have that situation ever come up again.
Yeah,
and
no,
I think that's
I think the conversation is like, I think it's not just conversation but also empathy in terms of like, I think that one of the biggest issues right now is that people don't like literally understand that whoever you're talking to online is like it's not a computer. This is like a real person on the other end of the thing that with like real feelings, and like generally we all want the same thing. We all want to live on this earth together and cohabituate, and generally we like, I think most of us subscribe to the like, don't touch my shit, I don't really give a shit what you do, like cool, like let's also all be cool, right?
Yeah.
And I think that most people believe that. I think that the issue is that, especially as younger people who grew up with the internet their entire lives, I think that they don't really realize at times that like Zoe Quinn's are like a real person. Doesn't matter if they're like the worst person in the world. it's still a real person. It's not like some like magical, like once people get the celebrity status, then people forget that they're not real people, you know, with like real feelings and like a real life. And I think it's important that, you know, I think that one of the reasons why I was so upset about like the Trump being elected, uh, outside of I think a lot of logical things that I felt like seemed obvious to me, was that I think that there's a lack of empathy in terms of a lot of the things that he says that he wants to do seem to lack a lot of empathy in terms of they seem unnecessarily cruel. Uh, and it feels like, in part, I think that some of the internet has what has done is I think that it's made humanity not have a good way to have conversations, but I also think that we've lost the ability in a way to empathize with one another in terms of someone going like, I really need this program because otherwise I won't be able to feed my kids or whatever. And I think there's a lot of people who like, I don't know, I feel like there's some sort of disconnect now.
Well, and that's where we were talking about capitalism earlier. Like when it comes to this shit, like that's where we allow our wallets to speak up for us a lot of times, right? Like you see a lot of stupid shit that goes on. Yeah, sometimes developers say some stupid shit. Same with manufacturers. Even publishers have gone on to Twitter and said some pretty dumb shit, pretty much killed their brands almost, and they brought them back. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like we got to remember we are human, and I think if we're ever to learn anything, is to not redo the same shit year after year. Like it's just a continuous repeat, and it sucks. Like I really hope.
That's what I've been super depressed about. Over this past couple weeks, I've been like, I think that we're not learning anything from our like any of our past mistakes.
Mm-hmm. And no, because I mean, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm so used to just jumping in whenever Brim.
No worries.
No, just that like the many things to where just Trump that got himself elected. There was a lot of reasons that from the Hillary camp that got Trump elected. And a lot of the actions from the quote unquote the far left that created this sort of of like this whole PC culture thing and these different little things that they were demanding and basically like limiting free speech but saying they were for free speech. I think it really sent a message across the United States wide, and I think that like Trump really spoke to that point, that aspect of it, and that really resonated with a lot of people, and especially after seeing like the way that the Hillary camp and stuff were really trying to go in on the whole PC thing. It really set that divide. And then after all that happened, instead of like recognizing why Trump actually got elected, even doubled down more on the whole thing is like it's like why are we trying to repeat this? Like let's try to figure out a way to like open our eyes to see what see where we actually went wrong. Don't just blame Trump and these other people. Like look at our own faults. And that's scary. That's a scary thought that I mean that the political spectrum is not learning from their mistakes, but be it left or right. And I just feel like that it's up to us as individuals to make that happen, within conversations like this or within just your everyday day-to-day thing. And because as we're the ones who actually control the government, so we're the ones who eventually, if we can start building this gap between us without the separation, then it kind of forces our politicians to do the same.
So I think that I 100% agree with you, and I think that you basically described like, so the reason why like Hillary lost the election was that she based her entire campaign on this idea of like, just look at Trump in terms of like, look at him, look at what he says, look what he does. Like this is not, like it should be obvious.
Yeah.
And I think that she should have focused on, instead of the PC thing, which I do think that was a lot of like her thing was trying to be like, I'm for everybody, like da da da, and just really be on the left on a lot of those social issues. I think that she should have just been like, just completely dropped all of that and not even talked about any of this stuff. Not talk about any, just assume that none of that matters. Just literally be like, listen, like, and just be like, I know how to deal with all of like being Secretary of State. I understand how to do this, this, and this, and da da da, and just be like, this guy does not have the like, just focus on like temperament and like actual ability to do these certain things. And like, I think that if you were to like look at, I think that when it came when you made the election about like the social political like spectrum, then people are going to vote and go, yeah, I'm sick of this, like I don't like this current wave of PC, like whatever it is. I want to vote for the guy that represents the opposite of that, right? I totally get that, and I get like why Hillary lost. Like that's a fucking like. Of course, people are like it totally makes sense why people would be resistant against that. But the thing is that like man, it's just we're not like Bolivia or some like tiny little country where we can have some like crazy dude run a country for a couple years and we're all gonna be fine. Like okay, like we lost the basketball game, figure it out next time. Like this dude is 6,000 nukes. Like we literally all could fucking die if he like doesn't know what he's doing, right?
I mean,
like
we could, but I mean, if
you're right, no,
I mean, the thing is, I was like turning it around. I mean, the Secretary of State that's been a lifetime politician, like she has some very questionable things, like where she let a lot of people die because of her inaction.
The thing is, like, yeah, and I totally understand. I understand all that stuff, but like at the end of the day, I think that there should be a base level of competency in terms of like, so you don't have to. It's not even a knock on intelligence. I'm saying that someone who actually understands the level of government and understands what keeps all the wheels rolling, and like you can't just hit a giant like people. I know that a lot of people voted for Trump, thinking of it as like this is a giant reset button, right? We can like literally like get rid of all these like like corrupt politicians and like put new blood in. And even if he's a fucking idiot, like at least it's new blood, right? And I totally get that. You can't just literally stop the printing press. If you like hit a hard button, it's like and everything just fucking stops. Then all the fucking papers like pile up, and then the fucking factory explodes. Everyone dies.
We can't stop the printing press, but we can sure in the hell try to curb it. You know what
I
mean?
think, and I just personally think that he's someone who is so he's so unqualified with the amount of power and responsibility that is entrusted to him. I think this is a very bad formula that my logic tells me that's probably going to end with a bad result. But you know what? It could end up. I would love if in fucking 4 years or 8 years we're like, wow, actually that wasn't so bad. Like great.
Now, the question I have on that, because that's actually a very good point you bring up there, is because it seems like a lot of people on the left are incapable of actually
even
it would be able to actually even admit after 4 years that he actually did a good job. Would you be able to actually say that? Is because I see so much, like, I mean, he like literally he could go to the funeral of the gentleman that was killed in Cleveland, and the media would try to figure a way to demonize the fact that he went to that, and then I would have like my Twitter timeline would be full of retweets of this media circus about how Trump's insensitive to black people or what. I mean, it would be some sort of narrative like that is just constant. It seems like that nobody, no matter what he does, that's even right.
Right.
That anybody can actually give him.
But that's also like, I mean, that comes with like the territory, right? There's always going to be like, if you're like the president or whatever, there's going to be like 30% of people on either side that are like, literally, there's nothing you can do that are going to make them like you. Like you're going to be the devil incarnate.
Absolutely, yeah, and I agree with that. But the best we should do as the people who live together in this is try to correct that. Like I can't stand the media for the shit of it. Like I can't stand any media, especially after this election, when you saw that like 90% of what was printed was fabricated and twisted about 75% of the time. And it was like, Jesus Christ, can't we just have like one publication that's actually honest here? Like, and I think the only way we're going to get that, though, is if we start demanding it. That's the only time it's going to happen. If we don't demand it and we just keep letting them do the same shit, then we're never going to learn from our mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, well, there is some level of like, I think that unfortunately or fortunately, like it's literally like the news is never just facts. Like there's like people write from
opinions,
but not just opinion. Like there's even the words that people choose to use, right? There's very subtle, like you put your politics into what you write. If you're a writer, unless you're a fucking robot, there's no way to literally write neutral on anything. I think that the people do feel a responsibility, especially like, and whether this is right or not is up for debate. But I think that a lot of the media feels a responsibility of that. They helped put this guy into office, and they gave him a lot of free earned media, and now they feel guilty, and now they like have to like make up for it. and be extra like, no, he's bad. We always hated him.
Well, what I think is funny now is like you have sites like CNN that are finally coming out and they're like, oh yeah, this was all bullshit. CBS is like, oh yeah, CNN posted bullshit. Now they're attacking each other. Now I never thought I'd see that in our lifetime, where the media starts to cannibalize one another over
no,
their opinions.
No, did you not catch that though? I thought the same thing too. But what it is like the people that CNN's fighting with within themselves. The CNN has actually hired reporters to be on their cast, so therefore they will stay fighting.
Oh, okay, good.
The actual owner of CNN has actually stated that he actually used to run, I think WWE, or not WWE. Actually had something. It was some sort of The Apprentice and Fear Factor, and he said the politics are nothing more than just like a football game.
Are you talking about Ted Turner?
No,
I
it's
mean,
not
like,
Ted Turner.
Absolutely. Like I trust me, I think that a lot of the media is also very like excited to have Trump as president because it means there's going to be a lot more ratings for them.
Right.
You know, right? No, totally right. I mean, it's all just a fucking show. Like whether it be like Fox News or like MSNBC, they're like they're all, you know, they're obvious like it's like different flavors of soda. It's all just fucking junk.
Yeah.
You know, it's not good for you.
And the sad part about it is that there's so many people like live and die and live and breathe by what the media tells them, and I find that to be so disheartening within the world. Is like that. Like how do you not know by now? Especially with a lot of the people that are doing this at your age, that the media is there not to give you the actual truth and the information or to disseminate the facts for you, but they're there to try to feed their own narrative to you. Like they're it's almost like indoctrination within their own fact of.
I mean, I would say that I don't think it's generally that sinister. I think that generally the only reason that the only message they're trying to push is to make money for themselves, and I think they'll sell you anything that you want to hear.
I mean, they've got algorithms for that.
Right, but I mean, I
don't
think that they're like going in there being like, we need to like, you know, subjugate the young youth and feed them liberal messages subconsciously. Like, I don't think there's no like fucking Illuminati bullshit. But I think that generally everyone's just trying to fucking make money.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I guess basically the political TV has turned into a capitalist society rather than what it was originally intended for.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's a failing of our education system that we're not teaching young people like, hey, here's how you ingest news. You get data points from a variety of sources, and you know, like, and here's how you can like critically analyze them and be like, here's, you know, like one of the classes I took in college, which a whole fucking semester of, was just like logic, and it was all like how, you know, if this then that, you know, and so by the end of it, you just understand like how, you know, the logic of things. And I think that most young people don't just get this basic kind of knowledge of how you disseminate and break down.
No, they don't,
right?
Because the logic is lost on all my kids that are in any sort of public school. Like they don't teach you that. They don't teach you any sort of even critical thinking. It's just.
Yeah, no, and I think that's like, you know, something that should be a bipartisan thing that people can agree on, is like stuff like that. I'd much rather that. I don't give a shit if kids don't know their 18th century. I mean, that's not that example. Actually, they should. But I'm saying that like there's got to be stuff that is not as important as like giving people like basic financial income, like training in terms of like, here's how you like keep a bank account, you know, basic stuff. Right?
I would rather see them spend a portion of their schooling to teach them how to become an actual proper functioning adult.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
Rather than,
totally.
I mean, because I feel like that would serve the purpose a whole lot more by going to spending all that time, all your younger years in school, to be thrown out to the wolves, you know, with no preparation at all.
Well, yeah, I think we should run on that platform.
So we've spent the first 2 hours of this pretty much political. So let's start talking about the game.
Yeah, I definitely would like to talk about the game because I'm playing part of it and I'm confused.
Sure.
All right, so first off, let's have Matt. Matt, go ahead and explain to us what your game's about. Well, this is my first time seeing it. Perhaps you could give me some cliff notes of what you guys designed here and what it's really about.
Sure. So, growing up, I love video games, but there was a game that I played that like it took me. Okay, so I played games and I got Super Mario RPG and Earthbound, and those games blew me away and was like, oh my god, like I didn't realize how deep games could be. But there was a different game that impressed me in a different kind of way, and that was Mr. Kojima's Snatcher for the Sega CD. And so, this game came out between Metal Gear and Metal Gear Solid, and it was so high production value. This game came out in like '93 on Sega CD and even earlier in Japan, and just the graphics and the sound, and it had like CD quality music and really good voice acting, and it was like this dark, creepy, like cyberpunk story. It just fucking blew me away. I was like so impressed, and I think it was just one of the games that like really just showed to me like the power of what gaming could be, and I think that Kojima's success also proves to me that like I picked the right horse. I knew that this guy was gonna like do big shit, and so I'm glad that like he was my inspiration. And so we wanted with this game to kind of like replicate that inspiration, where we wanted to make a game that was revolutionary in its own way. And our game is not revolutionary in terms of the gameplay. Like it is a point and click adventure game. So if you like point and click adventures with like a visual novel element and different kind of logic and some puzzles and stuff, then you'll like it. If you don't like that stuff or you think that's boring, you'll hate it. And it's super slow. It's kind of dry, at least for the first parts of it. But then it picks up. It becomes more like, I mean, it's slow, but it's intentionally slow. It's kind of like a book, but it's not like super. I mean, it's not like super slow. It's got voice acting. It's got really good voice acting. We have like Lee and Clementine from the Walking Dead series. Bigby Wolf from Wolf Among Us. We have Xavier Woods from WWE. We have Jim Reichert and Jim Sterling and Dan Reichert and a whole bunch of other people. And yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just an interesting cyberpunk story. But one of the things that we try to do with it is, because of who we are with making Gamer X and different things in the industry, we wanted to make a game that like featured diverse characters in a way that was just kind of like natural and cool, and hopefully would be something that your average gamer would be like, oh, that's weird, okay, that's cool, whatever, and they would like just kind of like be like cool with it, right? And then we wanted to make something that was like very kind of chill and very normalized, like in terms of normalizing a lot of these themes. And I think a lot of that is like why, even if I feel strongly about like my political views, why it was a mistake for us to be like fuck Trump, whatever. Because in general, we're not trying to make an overt political message. We're trying to be a much more subversive, like chill message. And I think that message that we sent out was way out of line with kind of like how we do business usually.
Yeah.
So what we generally trying to do is just kind of promote acceptance through just like showing you these characters and showing you them in ways that they are, just powerful in different ways, where they have agency. They are like important characters to the story. They are 3D. They have positive and negative characteristics, and they're just kind of there. And you'd be like, oh, that was interesting. Or like, oh, that was a genderqueer character. Okay, whatever. Like, they're cool, I guess, right? Like, where for a lot of people, like that can be really powerful if they've never met anyone like that before. They go, oh, okay, that's cool. And that's sort of our goal, right? Is that we can like showcase a lot of these characters, and some of them like talk about things that like if you are looking for deeper meaning, there's like we talk about some heavier stuff, but for the most part, it's like a murder mystery adventure game, and you kind of traverse through San Francisco in the year 2064, trying to figure out who kidnapped the creator of this robot, and you get kind of embroiled in this murder mystery, and then people start dying, and you got to kind of figure out why. But it's not really. It's less of a murder mystery and more of kind of like you kind of stumble upon a bigger secret, and the murders just kind of are consequential of the story.
All right. So like, what made you want to design something like this? I appreciate the old 8 and 16-bit type graphics. I love stuff like that. It kind of harkens back to our childhood a little bit. What was your motivation behind it? Besides, I mean, you said Snatcher was one of the bigger reasons that you actually designed this game. What made you sit down one day and was like, you know what, I'm gonna design this?
Well, I mean, honestly, like, if I'm being super real, it was like a lot of it was that. So there was two big things that I had to like figure out, right? Like, because ultimately, like, producing a project of this size is like figuring out a puzzle, and I think that the two big things I needed to figure out was like we don't really have anyone on the team that's like an amazing programmer, and we have people on the team that are really really good artists and really really good musicians and really good writers, but we don't really have anyone that's a really strong programmer. And so making a game in this style allowed for us to like make a game that like, dude, like I think that as a game, like in terms of gameplay, if that's what you're looking for, our game is junk. Like, and that's like and that's I think that that's not disparaging the game. I think that it's not.
No, I appreciate your honesty. I mean, I appreciate your honesty. That's actually, yeah, I like that. I like that. I mean,
but I think that the story and the world and the characters and the way that your choices impact how the story kind of progresses, and I think it's really really good. And I think especially like I don't think that it's the best thing ever, but I think that if you're looking for something unique in the video game world, like I know we created something that's unique and memorable, and we did some cool stuff with it. And so I think that if you like visual novel kind of stuff, you'll like it. But yeah, if you're like hate that stuff, there's no way you're gonna like our game.
Right.
But yeah, and so we wanted to make a game that because we didn't have strong programming, we wanted to do something that would not require strong programming. And so we chose that. We thought this format would be something where it's mostly this very kind of rather simple. It ended up not being that simple, but this kind of just rather simple text engine where people just select choices and then it just changes the graphics and stuff. And then we could just add in some side puzzles and things. And little did we know that like managing a database of you know thousands of different files and stuff ends up becoming a thing. But we also wanted to make a game that, like, if we were gonna make a game that featured a lot of like diverse characters, we wanted to make it in a style where they would talk about those things naturally, and it wouldn't be like some of these games where it's like, "Yes, I'm gay, bye," right? Like, where it's like, "Oh, what? Like, why did you tell me this? I don't care." We wanted it to all to feel like supernatural, right? Not like spooky like ghosts, but like yeah, we wanted it to be like natural. And so we thought that like making a game that's like kind of more text heavy, where you can kind of explore and ask people questions at your speed, would make it a lot more natural. For that way, when you talk about certain things, it just kind of happens naturally, as opposed to it being this like weird forced like thing where it feels like it's an agenda, as opposed to it just being a natural part of like what you'd expect a conversation would like be like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely interested in that because I've always said that I don't want these narratives forced on me. I don't think that that's actually what the industry needs at all in order to get. I think that's counterproductive in terms of getting more representation in those communities that what they're wanting out of it. So I'm very interested to see how your game plays out as I play it. To see if what you're saying is actually going to be like what actually happens, like if it is just a casual type of interaction where it just feels like it's just a natural part of the game. That's if you manage to do that, I think you're going to be one of the first games I've played where that's actually been managed.
But
your
objective was to make the gay culture like relevant in the game, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we wanted it to represent what we thought would be like realistic of like what people would be like in 2065, right, or 2064, where we were like, yeah, like if people are mostly like pretty chill about it, then yeah, people could be like very openly queer, and people would just be like, yeah, whatever, right? And it's all just very natural. And so we wanted to kind of like write this world that like we imagine, like that's sort of our kind of like political bent of the game, is like we're kind of being like, this would be cool if we kind of worked towards this. But it's all like kind of like I think a natural extension of where I think we are going as a society as well. In terms of just like kind of like people kind of like it's a new thing. It's always like 50 years ago it was this, and like 50 years from now people probably won't give a shit about like LGBT stuff, and it'll be like people are against people who have augments or not, right? Like people just fear the new thing, and then it all shakes out eventually, usually. Sometimes it shakes out bad for one side, but usually it shakes out okay in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
cool.
I don't really ever have a problem with like developers, especially indie developers, like creating games for not really so much games for a specific community, but games with a specific intent, like what yours is. I don't really generally have a problem with that per se in the industry. I think it's really to where it comes to like the bigger manufacturers like the Ubisofts and the EAs and the Activisions, to where they these bigger companies are forcing like not it's not even a new game really. It's like a series that we've grown to appreciate or to love the way it was, and then to force the like a change into it to where it wasn't a natural change. That's where I think my big gripe with the whole forced narrative thing happens, because I get that. I mean, like that's one of the things that, like what you said earlier, is that one of these things that we're like people like like me are saying is, if you don't like the games the way they are, like the Assassin's Creeds or the Call of Duties, then make your own game. If you really want that to happen, make your own game and make it out there. And that's what you've done. So I mean, I do definitely applaud that. I've not seen anything from looking over your Twitter accounts or anything like that to where I can see where you've tried to force a narrative within another game. So I do applaud you the fact that you actually you went out and did what everybody's asked everybody to do, is create your own game on that. Now,
well, no, I mean, I think that I appreciate that. There's two sides to it. Like personally, like I refuse to be a victim, and I was like, man, if I don't see the things that I want to see, I'll make my own thing, and I did it. Like, and that's just like how I am. But I also don't think that we should like. I don't think that it's wrong for people to ask for certain things and be like, I would like to see more of this. I don't think as like no one's going to these game developers and like putting a gun to their head and being like, you need to include this stuff or else, And I don't think it's necessarily wrong. Like, I mean, I think that I understand where you're coming from, and I think that we want these things to like feel natural. We don't want there to be like this like, oh well, we got to do this diversity thing, so we got to force all this stuff here that doesn't naturally fit, and that sucks, right? And I know that that's gonna happen. It's like, but I think that it's part of like the it's the like it's I think it's better that we go through the growing pains so that way we can have a better, more flourishing gaming community once it all kind of shakes out and it's like, okay, like we've gotten all the growing, like okay, we did it, right? Like cool. Like now we've had something like like I think that that's at least my perspective is that like once things sort of like if we just kind of can get over these initial growing pains, I think that everyone can like be like, okay, cool, like everyone's settled now, everybody's got a seat at the table. Because right now, and the way I see it is that I think that for a lot of groups who want to be involved in gaming, right, whether it be women, queer people of color, whatever, they perceive themselves as not being necessarily welcome at like the big boys table. And I think
Really?
that
Like,
yeah, right.
where
So
do you see that at?
that's the
yeah, I mean
that's the perception, right?
I agree with
And
Rambo
so
saying that it's good that you went out and did this thing, but the last thing I'm really gonna say on the topic is people that push an agenda in a game, such as there needs to be a black person, a gay person. That's just as bad as being racist or gay bashing. It's just on the other end of the fence.
well, there's one generally doesn't involve actual like we're not
It's not okay. So it's not so much the bashing in itself that they're comparing it to. What it's doing is it creates more of a divide because, like Gamergate and the vocal minority being the loudest representation, it's the same precedent as the vocal minority saying we need more of this in this game, being the vocal majority, being the final representation of what other people see. So when you see like, oh, we have a gay character in this and it's obvious, and or the developer makes statements about it. Well, now you have what you just, I'm not you, but people that are in this boat where they feel they need to make a precedent about it. It makes it sound worse than it really is. Even though we all know you're just trying to add people to it, again, it's controlling a narrative, and that's where a lot of people have the issue.
Well, I also just think that like one of the things that I think that we all are losing sight of is that like I think that we all love video games so much, right? That like there is a level of like we all just want to see it, succeed and grow in the best way possible. And so I think that we care about it enough that like you care about it enough to say your mind and be like, here's why this thing is bad or this or that. Like you're spending hours talking about it on this podcast, so you obviously are passionate enough about it.
Yeah.
Right, to do it. And I think in the same way, like I'm not bringing like me and people who I know who fight for these things, they're not doing it because they want to like ruin game. Like I know in their hearts what they want is they want to be there. They want to be a part of like the big thing, and they feel like they've been looking in from the outside, and they're like, man, we just want to bust down the doors, and we want to be a part of the party too. And it's, I think there's,
and that just shows.
I'm just I guess I'm just confused on that part, is because that I mean aside from the like again, I mean I couldn't Brim said there was gay characters back before. I can't recall any that I remember.
7.
Okay, I see. I didn't play the Final Fantasy series, but I mean there's a lot of them I'm sure that were back there. But as far as like the people of color and the women have been in games for a long damn time. And they've been very successful leads for a long damn time. So I'm not really sure exactly how women can possibly even remotely feel like that they're not welcome at the table, considering the fact that a lot of the major franchises are actually women. Metroid. What is it? Is it Metroid?
Yeah, Metroid. Metroid's one of them. Samus is a
there's just so much that I feel like that narrative is lost on a lot of people, because I've asked so many people, and I don't know where the numbers that you're where people are feeling are, I guess, like disenfranchised in this area, because I've asked so many women that I know, women gamers. I'm constantly within Facebook groups of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, and I come across several women in there, and they're all, none of them have ever felt like that they're represented in games. Like I've never came across one that said that women are like, they feel like an outcast. They feel just as welcome as the next person, and they feel just as represented in games as the next person. So I feel like that. Now, like I said, I can't really speak on the gay character, but as far as the women and the people of color, games where these people are the leads or they're co-leads in these games, and I don't know how. Like what more do these people want? Is like where I go, because that's where it starts getting into the touchy territory. Is like, are these people going? Is their narrative to try to force like every character to be a female, or every character to be a person of color? And it's not that I even care if they are a female or a person of color, but if it's forced upon me, or forced upon the hobby that I love, I feel like that's doing a disservice to not only the hobby, but also what their end goal is. Because it's going to have a negative reaction.
I feel like there's a misconception of deniability when it comes to exclusion or inclusion. I feel like there's too many people that are already jumping on the bandwagon or assuming that they're not welcome because of who they are, versus just jumping in and saying, hey, let's game. Because like my friend here in the comment section states, how does anybody know you're trans unless you say something? Like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying you don't have to say it. I'm not saying to be quiet. What I'm saying is why do people have to make an issue out of a non-issue? Why can't they make the change and let the change occur without starting a riot? You know what I mean?
I mean, the thing is that it's like, I'm gonna use some heavy language here, so don't
You're fine.
But like it's really, really hard to explain to people who basically are at like the top of the privilege chain.
Oh, good.
It's really
Go ahead.
It's really hard to explain. It's something that's very hard to explain to people who don't like being a gay man, a gay white man, is a very interesting experience. because you can kind of see both sides, because you can kind of live as a straight white man in America and you can see the way that people treat you. But I can immediately be like, I'm gay, and there's places in the like literally Chechnya is opening up gay concentration camps. There's literally places that we can like be killed.
Yeah.
So it's not like everything is like fucking rosy. Don't and like and.
But I mean, I could turn as a white man, I could turn that around the exact same way. There's literally places where I can be killed just for simply being a white man. It just
sure, but I mean, but like we're literally like, if we're living as white men in America, we basically have if there is a lotto of what's the best chances to have a good life, right? If you were born in the last 50 years in America as a white man, you have the highest chances of having a good life, just because of the prosperity of America, based on the way that the cultural, just how the divide has, happened.
But the effects in which you speak, though, like 90% of our community members, over 1,500 alone on this channel, I would say about 800 of those guys are either bisexual or gay, and they've all talked to us on our server and have all said quite the opposite of what you're telling me right now.
And I mean, as far as like being born white, I a white male, I mean, I have a hard time believing that because I live in a very impoverished neighborhood, that half of these white men that are walking up and down my street stumbling from being drunk because they are homeless would that being born white really fucking help them at all.
No, dude.
Explain to me why the gay couple just got their apartment remodeled, but yet my heater doesn't work.
Well, there's a lot of things to unpack there. I think that one of the things that the narrative of the progressive movement has completely lacked is an empathy towards the poverty of middle and poor white America. Like, totally, where they've just been like looking down at people and being like, haha, like, whatever, right? And I think that there's this level of like, well, we all need to come first. And I think that there's a level of like the forgotten America where it's like, well, what about us? Like, we're like, what about us? Like, just because I was born white, like, doesn't make it I still can't get a job. I still like can't like whatever, right? Like, so that is the case, obviously, but based on the history of who came over on the Mayflower and all that shit, just literally been born, like, based on the fact of how short in our time span of history slavery was, and the way that wealth is passed down between generations. If you were born as a white man in America in the last 50 years, in the past, keep in mind that women couldn't vote in the 20s and different things. Like, things have changed a lot. The fact that half of the people in your group are gay or bi and are like, yeah, everything's fucking swell, that's fucking awesome. Because 50 years ago, no, like 20 years ago, people being fucking dragged from trucks and fucking murdered.
Right.
That's not today.
But yeah, and great, good. So fucking A, like, but the thing is that like, it doesn't. That's good. That's a good thing. Like, making like, yes, sometimes like social change is hard and difficult, but like, it probably felt like this way in the fucking 60s too, when people fought for certain things that we look back now and we go, Matt, yeah, that made sense.
Bro, Matt, your privilege train lost a bunch of cars because it's not that way today.
Matt, like,
I think that there's totally a level of like, that argument lacks empathy towards, like,
I really don't feel like there's any sort of privilege by being white. I think there's a privilege by how hard you work, or maybe who your parents are, because I would say that I'm very less privileged than Kevin Durant. I'm very less privileged than Barack Obama. And there are people of color. There's several people I could go through the list of names, but I think that it's really more about a socioeconomic status rather than your color of your skin. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin or the gender of between your legs. I think it has everything to do with just the fact of your socioeconomic status. Poor people just tend to be forgotten regardless if you're black, white, gay, whatever you want to label the person. Because I live in a neighborhood. There's not a single black person that I've seen like once in the year and a half that I've been here. But there's several white and Spanish families here that we're all just kind of scraping by as far as like in terms of impoverished or not. I mean, you see the only thing you see here is just a heavier police presence. You don't really see any sort of helping hand. But I mean, then you go to another neighborhood, and I can go straight to our richest neighborhood here in Oklahoma, would be Oklahoma City, which would be like Edmond, and you would think by the way that these people have this privileged train that like the Edmond would be predominantly white or whatever like that, but there's actually like a good mix of 50-50 within white, black, just white and people of color in the rich area of our thing. So I feel like the thing in this whole race thing is actually it just seems to me like it's something that is pent up frustration from years ago. So that they're like projecting upon the society today, which is not nearly the same as what you keep on referring to as far as the past. Like things have changed, and it seems like the things that have changed, nobody's giving credit to those changes.
And like you said, Matt, we're not in Bolivia, we're not in these little third world nations, and yet when it comes to the social economics of our country, you would think we were, because we have people in these movements that claim that they were shit on because of their color, or their families were shit on because of their color, because of the neighborhoods they grew up in. And I grew up in a lot of these guys' neighborhoods. I grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up in fucking Inglewood. I've grown up in the ghetto slums of California, where like they told you if you're outside your house past 7 p.m., you're gonna get fucking mugged. Like that was like the general rule of the neighborhood that I grew up in. So when I see these situations play out with these social movements about being white privileged, I really hate to say that it's bullshit in a lot of cases. I'm not saying all these guys are wrong. I'm just saying for those that are on Twitter being the vocal minority, I guess. I mean, look at their LinkedIn accounts on some of these people. Like these guys got more money than I do, and they're talking about privilege. Like what the fuck?
So okay. So socioeconomics is, I totally agree with you in terms of like that generally overrides almost anything.
Yeah.
But when I was saying that it's really hard to like teach privilege, like I said, going back to the fact that I'm a white gay man, right? So I can't speak to what being a black person is in America. I can't speak to being what a woman is in America. I can only speak to what it's like to be gay, right? And I know that when it comes to privilege, right, and I'm not saying that like it does that things. Again, I can't speak to like being like living in a Compton or whatever.
You might want to put your victim card down before you keep talking, though. Just saying.
No, he's not. He's not having a victim card. Just go ahead, man.
As being a gay man, like there is a level of like a fear that comes at times with being like with holding hands with like a man or showing public displays of affection or whatever, and it's not unfounded. There is some level to that, and to deny that is I think unnecessarily cruel, because it's true. There's a reality of there's legitimately people who do not.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that hate fucking.
Right? So that is what I mean by privilege, in terms of that you have the privilege to not have to worry about, if you were to walk down the street holding the hand of the person that you love, that you wouldn't have to fear that someone would attack you because of the fact that you're gay. They might attack you to rob you, or they might attack you.
But now you see where he was coming from, the victim card, right? So the victim card thing, where he was stating is, if you look at it this way, you can either live in fear, or you could just tell people to go fuck themselves. Like seriously, Matt. You see some dumb motherfucker to you, dude, coming up to you, step up to you and your boyfriend, and they're gonna start hating on you because you suck his dick. You tell them to go fuck themselves. I mean, that's what you do. This isn't. We don't live in a country where we're in Russia, where if you're gay, you're gonna be hung. Here, you're allowed to tell that motherfucker to go screw himself. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
but the thing is that, like, yes, you're absolutely right, and that in an ideal situation, sure, but like again, I think that's like a hypothetical situation. Like
No, it's
when
not. That's how
no
I.
no
That's how,
when stuff like that actually does happen, it is like maybe you're stronger than me, but it makes me feel really sad. I don't like having people like tell me that I don't matter and like I'm gonna go to.
But
But I
Matt,
said, but then I mean,
but Matt,
could we not go back to maybe this was like go back to like maybe this is your privilege because this is like the privilege that you grew up to where you could actually have the feeling of being sad by being approached like that, whereas like the feeling I actually had to fight for my survival to be able to make it to the age of 40, and here I am a white man. I had to learn to tell people to fuck off.
but
But it's not because but no one can. But the thing is that no one like. You never had to deal with an issue where someone was like, "I'm gonna come after you because you're straight."
okay.
No, I've had people come after me because I'm white.
Matt,
Right, but I can't. Like I said, I can't speak.
Do you see the differences in what we're talking about here? You're talking about privilege as far as white privilege, as far as you being gay. You're having issues with other people that are not gay that are judging you, right? And you don't want to react in a negative way. You don't want to do any of that, right? Now, the privilege that we like that causes these issues is when you have a lot of people skewing the message. When you have people on Twitter and social media, fucking SJWs telling white people that they're fucking pieces of shit because of the color of their skin, people they don't even know, people they have no idea who they are. This is where the misconceptions are. This is why Shaner acted the way he did, and this is why we talk the way we do. Is because for you, Matt, like I think you're a pretty cool dude. Honestly,
Oh, yeah.
I really do. I don't have any issues with you. I hope one day that we could all live in this world where we don't have to worry about this shit, man. But in the meantime, Matt, like you need to like fucking whip out your fucking cock and smack a motherfucker with it if they're gonna keep doing that shit to you. If they judge you, if they fucking they wanna misconstrue your rights as a human being to love or fuck who you want to fuck, they are not an American citizen in my eyes. They're going against your very freedom, and you have every right to fucking smack a bitch.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, we keep cutting you off, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, so while we may disagree on this exact point, part of why I started because before we made the game, we ran a convention. And still runs called GamerX, which is like LGBT kind of focus, right?
Yeah.
And it's something where we get the question all the time, why do you guys need your own thing? Like, why does it need to have, like, it doesn't, a lot of people don't get it. And the thing is that it's something where it's really hard to, like, it's almost impossible to explain if you don't experience, it's a specific kind of experience. And if privilege is a loaded word, then don't use privilege, but it's like, if you aren't gay, you don't know what it's like to be gay. Like that's a fact. Like you can't. Doesn't matter how smart you are. If you're black, you don't know what it's like to be white. If you're white, you don't know what it's like to be black. Doesn't matter how smart you are. Doesn't matter if you can like I understand from because I watch TV or whatever or this or that. If you don't live the experience, you can't truly appreciate the experience.
Well, true, but I think everybody's experiences are going to be completely different. There's no way to say
right.
there's no way to say as a collective whole.
Right,
exactly.
But part of why we created GamerX is because people want to have a weekend where they know for a fact that while during that weekend everybody's gonna be cool with them. No one's gonna like it doesn't have to be a combative experience. Everyone's gonna be it's all gonna be chill. Like we all respect each other for like however whatever your fucking sexuality or gender or whatever the fuck like doesn't fucking matter. We're here for the games and let's just fucking like be here for the games and we have some like topics that talk about more political shit, but for the most part, it's a chill, like, let's fucking chill.
Okay,
like,
now kind of playing devil's advocate on this in your GamerX thing. Do you not feel like that it could possibly? I guess two things here, two points that like a sort of like a privatized echo chamber to where like of course you're going to continue to hear these type of feedback from the people because the I mean it's just creating some sort of like a circular logic within your own community to where y'all just keep repeating the same stuff so that you're going to hear it more and more. Second point is that I find that these groups that segregate themselves in the situation, whether it be the whites with their whole pro-white thing, or the black people with their thing, or the gay people, whatever they do when they separate themselves like that. It's kind of counterproductive for the fact of being the all-inclusive thing, because you're not all inclusive. You're only all inclusive.
You're actually
exactly.
You're actually secluded.
Exactly.
We
That's
are
creating
all
segregation.
It's not like dude, everybody is welcome. It's not like some like private club.
No, Matt. He's talking about people who sit there and they say, you don't know what it's like to be black, so X, Y, and Z to that, to disparage that person for not knowing what it's like to be black.
Obviously, so, like all of that is language that can be locked and loaded to like politicize any argument. But the fact of the matter is, like, I believe the sun goes up every morning, and I believe that if you don't actually like live as a woman, you don't know what it's like to be a woman. If you don't live as a black person, you can't actually know exactly what it's like. And so, to some level, I think there needs to be some level of listening where if people are saying, hey, this is a problem for us, or this is a thing that is affecting us, that the people who are I think that at least traditionally have been of the dominant like social political class, we would hope that they would like listen to that and be like, oh, okay, like let's see if we can try to make this better together, and we can work together towards a better, like, happier future for everybody.
And I agree with that, but you
But
can't.
it's not. It's always fucking fighting. But
I know, but you have to understand, like you just said a little bit ago. Didn't you not just say that the process of social change is going to be a fight? Remember, you said that just a little bit ago. So you're gonna have to fight. You're gonna have to speak up for yourself, regardless if you want to create more hate towards yourself or not. Like, do I think what you said on Twitter was bullshit? Yeah, but you know what? You fucking said it because that's what you believe. That's your thing, right? So fuck it. Like, if it creates more hate for you to fight for what you believe in, then so fucking be it, right? Like, for instance, the whole thing with like the whole not having the experience of living one race or a sexuality to another. Like, we could all say that. Right? But at the end of the day, like you said, we need to come together. But the only way we're going to be able to come together is if we stop trying to find ways to fucking separate ourselves from one another. And more people do that.
But the thing is that, like, this is a bad analogy. Imagine that we're like dating, right? Just imagine that, like, that you in your mind, imagine like just whatever you is in your mind is one person, and then there's another person. We're dating, and like if someone's like, yo, I just need like a couple years to myself to like think things through. I think that like we're at this point where I think that people are just like, with Gamer X, a lot of people want to come and be like, it's a place where they can finally like let their hair down and know for a fact that they're gonna like be in a place where they don't have to worry about shit. And it's really hard to explain that, because if you haven't had to feel that specific worry, like we had a marriage proposal that happened, right? Imagine if you did it at PAX and someone in the audience yells out "fag" or something, like literally like during your marriage proposal. That would suck, right? That would be like,
I mean, it would, but
suck, right?
It suck, but it's life. It's just life.
Sure, but some people don't want to like deal with that. Some people want to pay for a weekend where they can get away with that and just fucking chill and know that they don't have to deal with that for a weekend. Like, yes, it is a part of life. Obviously, it's a part of life. Why can't we have an escape from that once in a while?
Right, absolutely. But you got to remember, a lot of this stuff stems from fucking social media, man. How many fucking movements exist on social media alone that hate black people, that hate white people, that hate Mexicans? Like, I'm telling you, there's too many fucking things going on social media that people pay more attention to than life-to-life situations. You look at all the things that segregate.
I don't represent any of those people. I
know you don't. No, I know you don't. No, I know. I'm just saying, if you think about it, all these shitty situations that you describe are usually because of fucking social media. People take things seriously on social media. I mean, look at your game, for instance. I mean, that shit blew up today. Like, that's a real thing. Like, people take this shit seriously, and that's why you can't be a certain way on social media. But in real life, in person, yeah, that motherfucker, 9 times out of 10, Matt, most people will be keyboard warriors. They're not going to come up to you and be like, yo, fuck off, faggot. Like, yeah, right. If someone was to say that shit to me, dude, I'd knock him the fuck out. Seriously. That, no joke. 9 times out of 10, people will confine to themselves and leave people alone. And the first thing is, and this is a lot of things that happen in day-to-day life where I live out here, is people that are gay assume that they're hated by people around them without knowing for a fact. And these are people that I've grown up with, people that I know for a fact have never experienced the shit that people in, say, Los Angeles, or better yet, San Diego experience on a day-to-day basis, right?
Sure, but
so the assumption that someone's going to hate you because of your sex, your sexual orientation, or anything is just as damning as segregating yourself.
I think that though it's like, so I think that one of the things you got to realize is like, imagine a kick like an abused puppy, right? Where if you've been abused before and you're scared.
That would be understandable. If you're an abused puppy, that's what I'm saying. That's right? Understandable.
But I think that even for myself, I grew up as a very fucking I hate like SJW kind of person. Like I was all about that. Like everybody's fucking like I was very much like I grew up very, very like conservative. Like you don't understand. It wasn't until I actually went out into the world and like really started to see like, oh shit, like it is not like it is not a welcome. Like America's actually pretty fucking rad comparatively to most places in the world. But even in America, there's a lot of places where it's not like it's not the best experience to be gay. And like if you haven't lived it, I can't explain it to you. But there's things that kind of suck. And that's part of why we make this place, is so that way we can let people be away from
and that's fine. And that's fine.
But the thing is, we're not going to do it forever. And like, yeah, I think that like ultimately on the grand scale of it, yes, self-segregation is not the best solution towards a better understanding. But
absolutely.
But people need to have like, why can't we just have our escapes? Why can't we just be left alone? We don't want to like. Yes, you're right. We said
the world does not have safe spaces.
We said one bad thing once. Yeah, what if we pay for the space? It's my fucking space. It's my safe space. I paid for it. You say something that I don't like, you can leave my space. So yes, I think that we do have safe spaces.
So let me tell you what you have to think. You have the media to thank for all that bullshit. You have the media to think about all the situations that's ever taken place negatively or shown the gay community in a negative light. You have religion to thank for that. You have old guard Senate representatives that are.
I'm not sure. I don't need to blame. I don't care who's to blame. I want to be able to have my, you know what I mean? Like I don't care.
One of your thing is you said why, and I was just answering you. You have a lot of situations that are played from back before we were born that are still going on.
I didn't ask why. I didn't ask why is this happening to us. I'm saying why can't we just have our space? If I want to,
even if it is your safe space, dude, if you paid for that space, that doesn't stop someone from barging into it. That's just the world. That's how things work.
That's called trespassing. If you're not,
but it still happens.
Yeah, cool. Then I'll kick them out.
There you go. That's my point, though, Matt. That's my whole point. Is you ball up, dude, and you say it like you fucking mean it. You don't give a fuck.
But that's the thing is I don't understand like that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be like, hey, here's my space, and if you want to come to the space, here's like what we do here, and if you're cool with that, then come. And if you're not cool with that, then don't come. Why do we gotta have like it's just insane hate no matter what? Just the fact that we're trying to do this. I'm not trying to intrude on your space. I'm not trying to tell you what you need to do. We just want to have our thing. Why can't we just have our thing?
Well,
why does it have to have constant scrutiny all the time?
That is cool. Well, it's not. I mean,
what I explained earlier, the whole media thing. That's what that answer was to.
The constant scrutiny, constant scrutiny is not like just so much directed towards even just like the gay community, or it's just basically any community, whether it be the whites, the blacks, the gays, the lesbians,
any community who
segregates themselves, like it goes. It's I mean I 100% get like why you do it. I mean I get it, but it's just counterproductive to the message of the all inclusive.
But if you get why they do it, then why then?
Well, because I mean it's like you can it's hard to be self-segregate and then turn around and say you want the world to be all inclusive.
Yeah, there are people in the world that are self-serving and will use like the larger narrative to serve their own self-interest. Yes, obviously that's like duh. in general, that doesn't make the larger movement bad. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working towards those things. Just, you know, like
not at all, not at all.
No, I'm not. Like I said, I'm not begrudging you to have your space. I like that's cool. I mean, if that's
But-
where you, if that's what
the,
you want to
the
do.
thing is that, like, ultimately, like in an ideal world, right? And like we all want to live in this ideal world where literally, like, we're all cool with one another. It doesn't matter what you are, what you do. Like, we're all cool. There's no, like, everything's cool, right? That's our ideal. But unfortunately, we live in a reality that it, like, forces people to have to, like, cohabit, you know, habituate, right? And we I don't know. I mean, like, I think that we all want to just be cool with one another. But I think that it's not that easy. I think that people need to be able to have their communities, and you can still have communities while building them into the larger picture.
I mean, you can if you're working in the right way. You can.
Wait a minute. I have a question that might help a lot of people, including myself, understand this. Have you been severely discriminated against because of being a white gay male?
I would say that part of why I started doing this was from a very bad experience that I had that
Okay.
involved with being a gay person, and it impacted, you know, things, right? And things that it would be a situation where it would not have had happened if I was straight. So it's like things
Okay.
stem from that, where it's like learned life experiences where you go, okay, like, this is how it is.
I get it.
I'm all for, look, I'm all for positive movements, all right? I'm all
Oh, yeah.
for fighting for what you believe in. I believe that we all have our own personal demons that we have to fight. But like I've stated before, the moment you put yourself into a segregation and you sit there and you get into your own think tank where everybody says and does the same thing as you, just reinforces your safe space ideology. Me personally, man, I don't believe in safe spaces, regardless if I pay for it or not. I don't believe in safe spaces. I do believe in freedom of speech. And I also believe that you have every right to disagree with everything I have to say. Whether I like it or not, that is your prerogative. What I will say is this: the only time that we're all going to come together on this is if people can stop fucking trying to marginalize every single group of people known to mankind and just fucking be truly inclusive and not segregative. If we're not segregative, we won't have this problem, and therefore we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yes, I agree. I think that ultimately we want to get there. I think that part of the issue is acknowledging where we currently are. And I think that we, as a society, are both seeing the same chessboard and seeing wildly different pieces on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Right?
I think it's kind of hard to like judge where we are because you can't, like, as far as like in those terms, because you would have to look at gays as a collective and whites as a collective and
Well, no,
blacks as
and obviously intersectionality is a huge part of it. Like, you're right. Like, people don't live as a bubble. Like, there's black women, there's gay white men, there's whatever. Like, yes, like, uh, and that's why I was saying, like, as a gay white person, I can kind of see both sides. Where, like, I, as a white person, I totally, like, I'm a white person, right? So I understand the arguments that you guys make about certain race-based things. I understand where you're coming from. But also, as a gay person, I can understand what it's like to be from a group that has historically not been treated great.
Right.
yeah,
So
I can definitely agree with that.
right? And so we can, at the very least, relate and be like, oh, we can kind of empathize and be like, man, I can see how that could feel. But we can't truly understand. Like, I can't truly understand what the black experience is because I don't know what it's like to live that life. I know what it's like to be a white person in America right now, right? And I understand the fears that you express. Like, it's not like I'm not living that same shared experience,
But you
right?
don't think that's wrong to sit there and use that as a base argument for a broader picture? Like, you don't see that as a,
I
like,
think it's
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but the way that very message is echoed out through a lot of these kind of conversations is white people in general are usually pretty fucking demonized. So it's like, it's almost like a damn bad thing if you're a straight white male in America to a lot of these different groups. And that's what I was saying. Like, if we're less segregative and we're truly accepting, then, you know, we wouldn't be having this conversation, unfortunately.
And by being less segregative, I think an easy way to do it, or at least what I see an easy way of doing it, is that you can't do all this micromanaging when it comes to, you know, segregation. Like, you take every gamer, we should all get along because we're gamers, not because we're gay gamers, black gamers, white gamers, Mexican gamers. No, gamers. I mean, you guys see what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, so when people come to our events, like, one of the things like they say is like, so if you're a gay person and you go to gay things, right? There's a certain culture that exists around it. Around, you know, like, you talk about certain things. Gay people like gay stuff, right?
Yeah.
When you go to gamer events, you talk about gamer shit, right? There's a lot of people who don't want to hear about your gay shit. They don't want to hear about your love life at all. Like, who cares? They want to hear about, they want to talk about games, right? We want to make a space where people who like to live that intersectionality of lifestyles can come and just be like, chill out and be like, yeah, like, this is a place where it's not weird if you be like, oh, I think that character's hot, and be like, yeah, ha ha.
See, that to me kind of speaks like the lack of believing in your fellow man and where they're at and mentally. Like, for instance, like, for me, I'm not gay, but I say a lot of gay shit, and I've said worse things in most gay
we
bars.
all do.
You know what I mean? So like to me,
speak for yourself, Shane.
Now, to me, like, that sounds like, to me, like, it almost like you only want gay guys in there. Like, I wouldn't, you know what I mean?
No, like, the thing is that, like, I see our event as more of like in film, there's like Asian film festivals and Jewish film festivals and this and that film festivals, right?
Yeah,
and the people who go to them are not just like, you know, Asian people. Not just Asian people go to Asian films. People go like, oh, I want to see what kind of movies are being made or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it doesn't need to be a safe space, but like, you wouldn't go to those events and be like, well, actually, here's why I want to talk about why this thing is like. You should be coming from a place of like, this is not my culture. I'm willing to come in and be like, I'm a guest here, kind of thing, right?
That's kind of where I was sitting at. Like,
please, if you're willing to be just like respectful of like the space that we're trying to like make, like, then cool, then come. But if you're gonna be like obnoxious and like be like, so are you really a guy or a girl? Or what's on your fucking skirt? Or like, if you're gonna be fucking rude and obnoxious, people don't want to be like dealing with that for a weekend. And so I'm making a space where they don't have to deal with that shit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you were actually having any sort of event like in the central part of the U.S., I would actually attend just to see what it is that you are creating.
I'd be the obnoxious guy in the background, like, hey, how many dicks you suck?
Yes, but no, here's, I mean, I would definitely like come just to see, because I'm very curious in the sense of these different groups, like what it is that they are. Not only forming, but are they what are they trying to accomplish at the end goal? Because I feel like some of these groups, I'm not necessarily saying yours, but some of these groups their end goal is not really so much as to be inclusive within the whole world, with whether it be with gays or blacks or any other group that is created. It's kind of like it goes back to this whole superiority mentality, to where like what I say goes, and what like this it goes back, like, it kind of goes back to the whole PC culture, and that's what scares me with these groups like that are created specifically for the people that feel, and I use quotations because like every person feels differently, but these groups that feel disenfranchised or whatever, because you go to that PC culture and that is a very dangerous road to.
No, that's where it falls apart.
It falls apart to me because if you tell me, I understand that you might not like, and I don't actually use the word, but I'm going to be like you. I'm going to give you a warning. I'm going to be using some strong language, but I don't use the word like faggot and dyke and nigger and all. Those aren't part of my daily vocabulary or even my vocabulary at all. But the fact that it is like to where, yes, it might put you in your feelings or it might put other people in their feelings. They want to create a thing to where like that's not allowed by anybody. Well, I don't feel like that should be, that's even a celebrated thought, because freedom of speech is not the limit of speech. freedom of speech.
Obviously.
I mean,
But
I mean that's the thing is like that's where those
everybody should be able to say anything at any time. Yes, I
right
agree.
those groups that are created like yours. And I'm not saying yours is that way because I don't know, but those groups, whenever you hear about them, they're in like their message that they broadcast, like what you're broadcasting, is like a very, you know, like a good place for people to come and hang out. But their core message, like whenever you get there, is a very sinister one, to where like their goal is to stop these like these comedians from having these jokes, or these other the people on Twitter from having a voice, because they might use a word they find offensive. And it's like, you know, offense is taken, not given.
I think,
So
I think you gotta like actually like assess each like entity as its own case by case basis.
the reason why I said I would like to see your group. I'm curious in these groups like that, like, because that's the reason why I don't just take them as I like, again, I don't want you looking at me as a collective within the white people. I don't look at your group as a collective within all these other groups. I look at each group as a different thing, because each group has a different. Just because you have a group for gays, you doesn't mean you have the same agenda as this other group for gays. You know, so that's the reason why I don't look at all of y'all the same. Just because there's one bad group doesn't mean they're all bad groups. So that's the reason why I'm very curious when I see these groups, if I can attend one of their meetings or their little get-togethers, that I try to as often as I can, that just to see more, I guess, get a better understanding of what they're actually about, more so than what
instead of going by social media and what it tells us, right? Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people
I don't think
go wrong.
It's anything that like that insidious. It's generally just like people who are living in a collective shared experience, right? If like, it doesn't matter if you're a bunch of white men or if you're a bunch of, you know, lesbian women or whatever, but it's not uncommon for people who have shared common life experiences to gather and share their stories and like, hey, here's what's going on with me or whatever, right? And I think that yes, like that can be used for political agendas and be like, oh, we're like, you know, like whatever. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with people like just coming together and being like,
no,
hey,
I don't think so either. I mean, it goes back to like, I mean, your family get-togethers. I mean, that's just pretty much like it gets to be that simplistic. Is your get-togethers might be as simple as like my big family, you know, reunions that we have, where we're all come together. We're all as a collective whole, the same sort of, I guess, mentality, because we're all from the same family. But yet, you know, other people, we can bring our dates and our everything, you know, with us, and that it includes other people. But in the core of the group is our family, which is all of us. Whereas like the same thing with y'all, like your core group is your people that have these shared experiences, which is cool. I think that's actually not a bad thing for people to get together and be able to share those experiences, and to be able to, you know, get to like you actually get to meet other people with the same interest, and that can build off of relationships and everything else. Those are all great things. It's just that there's that, like, with the social media aspect of everything, and especially the way the world is going these days, socially, is when you hear these groups forming, or these groups that being about, like, it's almost it's in a way. Yeah, I see that, but it's I actually I think we're gonna actually have to end up ending it. But the thing is what the I really wanted to point out is that it's these talks like this that to me create less of that divide, or less of that automatic negative think that we do as humans, or as we do as like social media people. Actually have these conversations with other people from the opposite side or an opposite walk of life, definitely tends to help us all as a whole. Like, whether the whole empathy thing, it's kind of hard to be empathetic to a group, or to a person, or to anything, if all you see is just the social media aspect of it. Right. But talking like this, you actually have a one-on-one, an actual person with a real life experience, an actual person on both sides with a real life experience, to where empathy can go both ways on that. And I think that you can build that empathy, that empathetic feeling that you're referring to, a lot easier with these type of conversations than you can just through either a 140 character tweet or through like the notorious thing, a big block, because you don't agree with the way I think. So I can't really thank you enough for actually being open enough to actually come and especially talk to 3 Trump supporters, especially with your original tweet. And I think that it's kind of odd that your tweet about Trump and his supporters, how negative it was, actually brought together what I felt was a very productive conversation.
So, yeah, well, I mean, I think because ultimately, I think there's people who just try to start shit, and like, you know, and like they don't want to actually reach any kind of like positive resolution. And like, I'm not like that. I am a pragmatic person, and I also am like an Epicurean person. Like, I'm not trying to I'm trying to live a nice, happy life. All right, like I don't want to be starting shit with anybody. Just leave me alone. You know, but I also want to be able to like have my cool shit. If I want to make it like a weird gay cyberpunk game, like I should be able to do that. And if you don't like it, then fine. You know, cool. I don't give a shit. Like,
come on, Matt. Come on. I know. There's an asshole in there somewhere in you. You could say it. You could say "fuck off, world" if you don't like my fucking game. That's all you gotta say. See?
Yeah, fuck off, world, if you don't like.
Thank you.
Like, yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Dude, I mean,
all right. So
totally, and like ultimately, I wanted our game to be above like the like. There's a reason why you don't get political in these things, and I thought that I was, like going back on it, like 100%, I would not have tweeted that, because even if that was completely how I felt, which is not true, even if that was 100% how I felt. Like, I felt like we put so much time and energy and love into making a statement with our game that to, like, just kind of throw away some of that on, like, a really just like, stupid a tweet is, like, that's not, like, anybody can write a stupid tweet being, like, Trump fucking sucks, right? Anybody can do that. Like, we made an entire game. Like, I want the product to be what sells.
To speak for itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like, I don't want people, like, I hate the fact, like, I know that this is going to sound hypocritical, and you don't have to believe me, because obviously I like money, but I really don't want people to be buying the game because of this. It makes me sad that people would buy the game because of this. I want people to buy it because they go, that looks interesting, or I like the idea of these characters, or I want to meet those characters, or I want to play in this world, or it's good. And if they find out about it through the controversy, great. But I don't want that to be. I don't want people just to buy the game out of spite.
Yeah.
I want people to buy it because they think it's cool. And that's what kind of makes me sad, is that because I made that tweet, now all of a sudden we're on the, you know, Trump, anti-Trump bandwagon. Now we have all the people coming out of the woodwork that are like, oh, you know, I'm the you know, amazing atheist guy, and I'm the guy, or whatever, right? And they just like come in, they're like, here's a, you know, a topical thing, I'm gonna, you know, weigh in, and then I got to deal with all their supporters just being like arguing, and I'm like, I don't want to, like, I get a fucking alert every time I get a message. I get like thousands of them. I just want to be like left alone. I want
to I've turned mine on silent.
I'm sorry, Matt, but once you kind of did that to yourself, you're kind of on your own on that one.
Totally.
I do. But hold on, guys. Before we get too far, before we end it, I do have somebody in here that wants to say something to you, and I don't know quite where he's going to go with this, so forgive me ahead of time.
All right.
Oh, yeah, so
there you go. There you go.
Okay, yeah, so sorry if I gotta keep it down a little. Yeah, I have a lot of stuff queued over the, you know, I've been watching the whole podcast, you know, weighing in a little bit in the comment, some a little fiery than others. And the whole situation to me, like walking into it just as a, you know, random person off the street, especially going off of like that reputation we were just talking about, where, oh, you know, with the Twitter post. I have a really big thing with like, I'm trying to find out where to start. When it comes to, like LGBT stuff being represented in games, whenever I come across it, I'm usually I'm fine with it. You know, it's like, oh, okay, you know, like I like it. It's if it's a good story, then I'll still, you know, partake in it. There's times, you know, I'll man, see, look at me, I'm studying like crazy now. How do I put it? So I see the problem more being when it comes to games like 2064, when you want to get that out there, and when you want to bring out more people that usually aren't into that type of thing, when comments like that are made, it mostly pushes them away and it gets them thinking the opposite. Like the average Trump supporter is going to see a post like that, regardless of whatever happens afterwards, apology or sticking with it. And they're going to say, oh, well, if that's how people that make these type of games think, then we're not really going to want that. Like we don't, you know, I'm not going to try it out. I'm not going to be open to that suggestion.
That's a good point there.
Yeah, and the whole privilege. I know it's old news, but it's all, like I said, it's all queued up with the whole privilege thing. I'm mixed descent. I come from a white dad and a black mom, and I grew up in a nice small little neighborhood. You know, I got my family with, you know, nice tight little family, but my grandparents they're completely white and they're in huge debt. They're going to be working into the grave, and I'm, you know, working a great job. I've got a great little lifestyle. You know, I can, you know, spend, splurge where I want. So when I see things like white privilege, it's backwards to me. It's alien. And I know that in different places of the world, different things happen. But for someone like me, like to go out into broad brush, say, oh, there's white privilege everywhere in America, that's really, really like jarring. It's like, how is that even true? Like to me, that I couldn't see that as true unless I realized, oh, they must be talking about, you know, there was an instance where this happened. There must be like places, examples they've seen that would make them think this. But yeah, I don't want to go too long if anyone has anything to say.
No, I feel like white privilege, the whole that whole thing, that's false. There's no such thing as white privilege.
Oh, for sure.
And then when you say white privilege, that entails the whole white race.
Yeah, and the one thing I always say about as far as like mixing races, mixing sexualities, all this stuff, you look at when you have such a forced way of doing things, like when you try to make it, like when you put black people, when you put minorities, when you put a certain like LGBT on a pedestal, when you try to say, oh well, we should give them the right, like you see in like Black Lives Matters protests, they always say like, oh, we're going to let the black people stand in the front and speak first. It's like, well, you're not promoting equality, you're putting them ahead, and that's very off-putting to a lot of people, including myself. Like I don't want to be put on a pedestal because I'm brown. I would like to be just as normal as anyone else. I grew up in an all-white school. There was me and one other person in my school that was black. And I didn't know race. There was no racism. If there was, I didn't detect it. No one treated me differently, unfairly, because I was friends with those people. The Discord servers that I'm in now, like I know plenty of gay people that I'm great friends with. You know, closer friends than other people I know in real life. And they're completely, you know, they're left-leaning, they're gay, they're entirely different from myself in their stance. It's just because we don't they don't try to push any type of agenda on me, and they don't try to change the way I think. They say, well, I see how you think and I see how you're different, and it's not any like unhealthy thing. I don't think, oh, let's go out and burn gays. I don't think like that. So and they don't think the same the other way around. They don't think, oh, we should burn all the straight people. So for them, like so we get along despite our differences. And it just seems kind of weird when people try to force that togetherness, that inclusion, that little extra. And I've seen that a lot more lately, especially within gaming. You look at with Battlefield, something very simple. The German soldiers in the game, they have black Germans. And to the average person, it's like, yeah, whatever, it's a game, no one cares. You know, they've had soldiers, you know, BF3 the medic was. But if you look back in time, there weren't any, like, no black soldiers fought in actual like continental Europe. They fought down in Africa. There were Afro-Germans later on within the time period after, but as of World War I, none of them fought. And I know I'm rambling on, but I was just kind of pushing
trying to make a point. Yeah.
And it's kind of weird when they have that little bit of a disconnect where they push too hard. They try too hard to make it. And as far as 2064 game goes, I'm just now learning about the game. I'm brand new to it. Going in, I have no idea about the game. But so whenever something like that comes up, like let's say like there's a gay couple in the game, I saw like part of the trailer in the Steam, and there was two men that were talking about a relationship with gay dating. I might have watched it wrong, I'm unsure. And you know, interrupt me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like with that, it didn't put me off. I wasn't like, oh no, this game needs to get a bad review. Oh, it's score. I was just like, oh, like I'm not gay, but you know, there's a gay character. That's fine. It's actually kind of hot, you know. It's what you know. So when I see stuff like that, it's fine with me. But then when someone says, oh well, if you don't like it and you don't support it, then you're bad and you're evil. Like if someone was put off by that, I wouldn't turn and say, oh no, you should like this. You should want to, you should want more of this in your game. You should want a disproportionate amount of it in your game.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, very good points there.
Yeah, and it's all been smashed up. I'm it's all been queued, like I said, trying to get it all.
No, you're good.
Trying to get it all out.
No. I mean, those are all like actually like really good points, and they're all like well articulated. I think that so the first thing you were saying about the statement going against our goals, like 100%. Like the thing is that our game was always intended to be something that was subversive, like a game that the average person wouldn't look at it as being a political game, and they would play it and be like, "Oh, that's cool." And they wouldn't even kind of notice; it'd be very subtle. That was the intent of the game. Right. So again, even if what I said was like exactly how I felt, and I had no regrets about it as a business decision, it doesn't fit with the stated goal of the product. Like our game isn't the fuck Trump game. Like that's not our brand.
Right.
Okay?
Although you probably make a pretty good mint off that game though.
Maybe
I was talking about.
Totally.
Yeah, with the Trump, like when I saw that, like I instantly thought, oh man, like I didn't even get to try the game. I barely knew the name of the game, and I've already been told F off. Like whoa, like here I was about to understand this culture, this entirely different culture from my own. But then I was pushed away because of something entirely unrelated to my gaming tape. I love point and click adventures. It's one of my favorite when I grew up playing that genre. But I don't know many LGBT games or games that like promote off of it. Well, not promote off of it, but they have a big feature of that. Usually it's kind of like an Easter egg or a cameo, or it's kind of written off kind of weird, like how Andromeda did. So with that, like I'm fine with learning, like having a character. Like a character is a character. One thing I don't really understand that people get into is like, oh well, I can't relate to a character that's not this or that's not that. And often you see like developers like, oh, like there was one Twitter post from some dev. They're like, oh, God forbid there's a video game that comes out that doesn't have a straight white male protagonist. And I was like, well, I'm not white, but I can still relate to the guy. Like I see where they're coming from. Or even the opposite. Faith from Mirror's Edge. She's by far like I've imprinted most on that character of any video game character just because of like her struggle, like her story and what she's been through, the things she does, how powerful she is. And she's a woman. She's an Asian woman. I have nothing in common with that. But but it's her person now. She's so she's such a well-written character, like in my opinion. I know some people say Mirror's Edge sucks. But
yeah, I would be one of those people.
The way she's written.
Can I stop you 1 second? If she was written as being a white man, do you think that it would have been the exact same experience, or do you think that it was enhanced by her being this Asian female character?
I think if you would have done a model swap and a voice chat, like if you just would have had someone else in that person's shoes, I would have related to them, like the character from Infamous. I almost related because it's a different story. It's a little different. I didn't spend as much time with that character. I saw the same thing. I like that powerful, quick, more of like their abilities and their personality.
Right, but I think that there is also a level of like, not to get like I think that we're discussing like the end product where we were like, cool, like doesn't like whatever, but there has to be some level of social progress on the back end where it takes someone who makes the decision to go, we're gonna make this character be like, someone has to decide if the character is gonna be man or a woman, right?
Oh,
like it's not, it's a conscious decision, right?
Yeah.
So someone has to have like there's some level of social progress, like because towards like being like, oh, we're gonna make this choice to choose to be this instead of that, and I think that we're mostly talking about like the end product where we want it to be natural, we want it to just fit into the game world, and I agree. I think that's what we all want. We don't want it to be like this forced in like that sucks. But I do think that like it does require work on the actual business and development side that to some may seem like politics, but to others I think that there's a level of people who are fighting for the like it takes people to fight for that. Otherwise, if they don't, then they'll just go with whatever the safest option is.
Well, let me put
and that's where I see where instead of making, and it's, I guess, shoehorning comes to mind when I think of it. I'd see a difference between the reaction of, say, like the two lesbian characters in Fallout 4 at the prologue. Most people don't even know they exist, but they're there. And if you're have a watchful eye, you'll see and be like, oh, look there, they added a lesbian your character themselves, so you can have a gay or lesbian relationship. And there's a lot of games that are adding that kind of stuff. Stardew Valley.
Yeah. So
and it's slowly becoming a thing at its own pace. And some could say, yeah, it could go a little faster.
Right, so,
but then you have but if you just make a gay game, like if you made a game that was specifically about gay relationships or about any specific thing at all, it's going to catch that flow.
Yeah, but but just as an example of like why, like, so Tim Kaine, who was like one of the lead of the Fallout, who's gay, like was one of our bosses of honor, I think, last year, and like he talked about like his entire topic was about how they were making those decisions to have in Fallout 1 and 2, like have like the gay characters, and like what the struggles were in terms of like the battles they had to fight to get those characters in, and like what it took. And it's like super fascinating, and it's that kind of stuff would not necessarily get an hour at PAX. And
right.
and I think that's what, like, I don't think that we're trying to be like, we need to tell these people that they need to change their games or whatever. And maybe some people are, but that's not me. And I don't think, and the people who I associate with aren't like that. People I associate with are more about like celebrating and like, like diverse culture. Like, it's cool. Like everyone should be able to have like, everything's cool. Why can't we all try different kinds of food?
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that I see. Something I learned in the military is when you have people that come from different backgrounds, you have like they not only like they don't just do things differently, they think different, they are different. So you'll have like, let's say, I'm trying to think of something dumb. I have a pony profile picture, and if I go into a random Discord, like I'm a mod over on the Battlefield Discord, and I get crap for it all the time, I'm not going to be able to just convince somebody. Like if I wanted to convince someone, oh no, it's a great show, people like it, like I like it, there's a good fan base, there's pretty nice people. I can't go in and say, oh well, you need to stop right now from saying all these things about me and the people that are into this or this way. It would be this. It's more of a slow crawl. Like I've got a friend that he totally hated it. He was like, oh look at all these pony fags and whatever words he used. And he didn't know secretly I was a fan of the show. And over time, I kind of just, talk to him, but like I'd bring it up in a certain way, or I'd do it in a way that he was able to understand it. And that's kind of what because what am I saying? With that, it's like you have to find the way that other people will be able to
can relate to it.
Yeah, the way they can relate to it. Like
yeah,
said,
no, totally. And I agree. And I think that like where I think that conservatives and liberals don't see eye to eye is with this idea of like a safe space of that anyone should be able to say anything they want. Like I don't think that anyone who disagrees with that is dumb.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's the concern. I think that the concern is more of like, hey, this thing is rude, and it'd be nice if you didn't say it because it's rude. But ultimately, you should be able to fucking say whatever you want. And I think that people have lost that level of like, okay, like, got it, I heard you, and you can. I'm choosing to
common decency.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like to me, like, common decency would be great. I'd love it. I would love to be able to wear a pony T-shirt down to the mall and not have somebody call me a faggot.
Right. So I don't think that like for instance, I play a lot of Overwatch, right?
Yep.
Like if I go on and people are on there are like fag, or throwing around the N-word or whatever, I'm not gonna like cry about it or block them. I'm just like, all right, like. But there are times when I also would like to play with people, either friends or people that I know are like chill, that I don't have to like worry about. Oh, if I say something gay, that like they might like like come at me in a certain way, right?
Well, in that case, that's the same thing I was saying. Like in that case, either you queue up with 5 friends so they have your back, or when you say those things, be ready to punch back. Because like I said, if I go in there talking about, oh hey, Rainbow Dash is my favorite pony, and all of a sudden someone says, oh you're such a faggot, you like ponies. what do I say? Like,
But
I can't.
That's why you snap back with something.
Yeah, I snap back like, well, at least I'm not a whatever his name, something. At least if he has like an edgy name and he's playing Reaper, at least I'm not a school shooter kid. I can, say something back.
But like, there's difference between like going to like Walmart and being like, I like this, and like going to a forum or a chat room where people who kind of share the same like.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that I think that people need to be able to coexist in a common space, right? Like people can't live in this idea of the safe space like bubble of like obviously like people have to co-habituate. Like you can't like impose your just because it upsets you doesn't mean you can force your views on anyone else.
Right.
But with that, I also say whenever you're in those groups, there is also certain things you should and shouldn't say. Because like let's say I'm a Christian and I go to a group and there's Christians, Jews, Muslims, and all this other stuff. Should I start saying anti-Muslim and anti-Semitic stuff and then expect them to say, or should I start talking about Jesus to the Jew? Or should I start talking about how my girlfriend wears tank tops to the Muslim? It's like there's certain things that, because they're not going to go to you and start saying, oh, I think that all people that don't believe in Allah are infidels. Like there's things that shouldn't be said. With something.
I think that's just common decency.
Exactly. And
common decency involves
want to say something like if you said, oh, McCree's hot or something. Yeah, I could get if you got some flack for that. But it's like, well, you're not wrong. McCree's he's the handsome devil. He's the Clint Eastwood. I'm straight and I can realize that. But yeah, it's just you'll get crap for it. It's like if I said, "Oh man, Winston's hot," and people would be like, "What? Like you into Harambe, dude?" And I'm like, "No, heck yeah, man, I take it to stride."
I mean, I guess I could put it like this: like when there was a town hall meeting in my town, all right, little old guy, he had to be in his 60s, he had a veteran shirt on or whatever. This is on YouTube, and he decided he was gonna curse out about Muslims, and because the leading physician out here is a Muslim, nice guy. I've never had any issues with him, but he would refer to this guy that was he's capable of saving his life. This little old guy would give him flack, and so everybody in the community said he told this little old guy to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Because like that's what I think is missing when it comes to online interactions. You don't really have too many people that are willing to say you're fucking stupid or say it like it is in voice chats. So you have a lot of keyboard warriors, right? So,
no, totally. I mean, ultimately, like, not to turn it back around, but like, this is probably why one of the reasons why I don't like Trump is that he is the Twitter president. And I think that Twitter and social media is not a good way of conveying anything.
Hey, but he promoted you though, right?
No, that was fake. That was someone photoshopped that.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, I'd not say that Obama wasn't the selfie king.
So, but I think that like this is a bad like we're not actually having like dude. I literally just this morning flew back from like rural Virginia where I was talking about game dev to like it wasn't like that rural, but it was like I was like a propeller plane with like 8 people on it to get there.
Yeah,
that's
so it was weird. But dude, I mean, I know that most people in like conservative areas are not like, and I think that most people know that like that it's not this like. Most people are reasonable people, and most people are like just want to live their lives and take care of their families and like play their fucking games. No one's like trying to start shit with anybody generally. And I just think that we need to have more of these kind of like conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Agree, definitely.
Because I think, and what scares me, and part of why I like made the whole post is like I've just been very nihilistic. Where I really, even if it's not Trump, let's just say I don't even care. Like let's just say that we had a robot as president. Doesn't matter. I worry about the fact that like we're getting further and further apart as a society, and I don't think that we're making any progress towards like. We don't all have to be moderates. I don't fucking care if people have different views, but like we're literally like headed towards like Civil War II, Electric Boogaloo, and I think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna get any better. I think it's gonna get way, way, way worse.
Oh, especially with the formation of Antifa, I really feel that you are on the like. I've been feeling like a civil war, not in the same sense as what we had back in the day, but a civil war is brewing. well, because the two sides are so far opposite of each other.
Yeah, and
it's almost like they've taken. Oh, I'm sorry. It's like the right reformed the Tea Party, and that was like the fringe right. And then the left's like, well, you know what? I'm going to show you. I'm going to one up you, and they created their little faction. It's just like they keep on one upping each other, and these people, whether they identify as left or right, they tend to like flock towards that mentality, and it's just creating a bigger and bigger divide between our country. And
no, and like so and like just be real. Like I love our country, I love America, but I'm fucking terrified because I think it's just gonna keep on escalating, and like I think there's gonna come a point where like I think it's gonna be a real hot, like America might be a hostile area for a while. Like I might need to take a vacation in like Fiji for a couple years.
Well,
right?
I mean,
Probably.
what you need to do is you need to get out of the city and you need to go to some nice little town that has
that rural Virginia town.
Actually, I was thinking about that, dude. I was like, okay, look, as long as I can get like fiber internet, like one of those places or somewhere, at least it's got to be good high speed.
Yep.
It's got to be like, you know what I mean? As long as I can get
You don't want to go to dial up, man? Come on, man. Those were the days.
yeah, I don't want to be in the sticks connecting to dial up. As long as I got good internet and like a couple really good delivery options, and like I'm really into like Thai food, so one of those would be great. I'll be set. No, I can live off the grid.
There's plenty of places like that. Like a lot, and this is another thing I would see. Like a lot of my friends that are like left leaning, they talk about like how there's racism, all this stuff. A lot of them are from the city, and you look at like the way people vote. Like the most of the entire map for the votes last election were red everywhere, and then blue in the cities. When you come out here, like these rural areas, there's a lot less of there's a lot less political discussion too. Like whenever I go to talk with my grandparents or like my friends about stuff, a lot of them don't even know. Like I'm pretty much their news.
Yeah,
Oh,
same,
yeah.
same
Actually,
here. Yeah.
same here. I mean, like even if you try to bring up politics, a lot of them will even the older crowd will be like, I don't even want to. Don't talk to me about that mess. You know, just they actually just want to be left alone and just enjoy their day. I mean, like they don't really. Especially Middle America. Middle America is really not people like think that, or I guess it's been mirrored as a lot of people in Middle America seem to like just want to get their get their ends meet, make their living, go day by day, and they're not really so much focused in on everyday politics like the big cities are.
Yeah, you look at Jack Reese. Gay furry Marine vet. He's the cool great guy. He's from where out in Indiana-ish.
Indiana.
Let's not get crazy with the whole great guy thing, okay?
He's got a story. Yeah.
Nonetheless, we're coming up on the 3-hour mark. I just want to say thanks for having this conversation with Matt. Like, not a whole lot of people are willing to get into a call like this because they usually assume the worst will happen first before actually letting results take place. So I do want to say thank you for coming on, man.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And actually for reaching out to. I mean, I know I tagged you in the Twitter post, but for actually responding, for being willing to respond and endure not only me but like my followers as well. It kind of went against some of the things that I felt that you said, but I mean, it took a lot of courage on your end too, because you never knew what you were going to get on that other end. The fact that you are willing to actually have the like this type of conversation, I think it goes a long way in. I really.
You're right there, Emma.
No, I mean, I'm just. I want to make sure I say it correctly because I tend to like say things and then think about it later. But I really feel like that's a action towards not only just with like your game and with your the situation, but also within like to show also the rest of the community, whether they be the indie devs that do make these political statements, whether it be left or right, that stand behind them and also like have that open dialogue with people from the opposite side. And so I'm hoping that more people can actually see this, to see where you took a stance on one side, but yet you were still able to come over to the other side and talk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that like, I mean, in general, I would not like if this was the Bush era or whatever. This would not be something that we would do. I think I find that Trump to be a very special case of where it's not the politics that bother me. It's specifically what's going on around the Trump. Like it's not like, oh, I'm mad because the Republicans won or because conservative value, like whatever. Like cool, like that's just the way that it goes, man. It's just like waves, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm cool with that. I think that fucking people got like I think America's got the fucking wool like thrown over their eyes by a fucking reality TV star. You're not like I don't think people are paying attention to the important things, and I think that I think it was a big mistake, and I feel pretty strong on my convictions on that.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think that I think the 4 years will have to play out to see what happens to become to that.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how ridiculously early on we are to the whole presidential election too.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot can happen.
Shaner, are you there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping you are wrong on this.
Yeah, no, me too, dude. You know what? I would love if he, look like best case scenario for me is that he's a little corrupt and he like pours some money from like certain things into his business things and he gets permits for his companies and whatever. But for the most part, he keeps things stable. Everything is cool. Like like just like it's a good, productive 4 years of like stable, good like conservative value, like cool, great, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like as long as we don't start any fucking like major wars, as long as there's no like giant like socioeconomic shakeups.
As you say that like we're like sending shit to North Korea and watching Russia, but I want to caution everybody that especially in the left that this whole situation with Russia and North Korea is not because of Trump. This thing has been brewing for many. This thing has been brewing for many years.
No, dude. Okay, anybody that thinks that Trump didn't inherit North Korea is a fucking idiot. Obviously, like Obama was probably thrilled to be able to be like, join North Korea.
Not my problem anymore.
I'm going to play golf, man.
No, totally. No, right. And you can even you could even say that Obama was cowardly in not dealing with them during the years that he was president, right? Totally understandable. Yeah. Like I wouldn't want to deal with that either. It's so you guys know about Godzilla, right?
Mm-hmm.
Japan made a new movie called Shin Godzilla, and Shin Godzilla represents North Korea. Right?
Wow.
So it's this little baby little baby Godzilla that just kind of like is kind of annoying. He isn't really that powerful, but he kind of is like every once in a while, like he doesn't like. Basically, the entire country just keeps on being like, "What should we do about it?" I don't know, and they just all get stuck in bureaucracy while the little baby, like like Godzilla is just like destroying shit and getting bigger and bigger, and people are like, "We gotta fucking deal with this, before it's too late." And then basically Godzilla starts coming towards the United States. And the United States is like, well, we're just gonna nuke it. And Japan is like, no, like please don't nuke it. We would prefer not to have you nuke things, especially not near us. So don't nuke it. And it's just fascinating. It's just about U.S. is like, we're gonna fucking nuke it. If it comes any closer to California, we're gonna just like nuke this thing and that's it. And it's a really fascinating thing. But yeah, dude, anyone who thinks that like the whole Russia thing was not like this giant master plan that's been in place for 50 years. Like the tensions between Russia and America have been going on for a long time. Like it's not like Trump invented that. Trump didn't invent the mess in North Korea. Trump didn't invent ISIS. Like obviously all this shit is stuff that like I pay him that like whatever he's got to do to deal with that shit. Like
just get it done and over with.
I mean, ultimately, I hope that he surrounds himself with competent people who actually know, like, the military is a complicated thing, and I hope that he does not, like, I think that having people like Steve Bannon in like, the National Security Council is probably, I would prefer that he had people with military experience than, like, propaganda people, but...
Mad Dog Mattis.
Sure, great, yeah, yeah, fine. A fucking like someone who understands the military system. I don't care if it's like if I disagree with or think the military industrial complex is bad. I would prefer to have someone who knows how to flying the plane.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and try to end this in the normal fashion.
Okay.
In the normal fashion, Matt, is it true that in gay sex size does not matter?
No.
No.
What size matters?
Does it matter?
Yes.
So
I just
like,
want to apologize to the listeners. I mean, they kind of got duped tonight.
no. We're talking about size here. So like, you like to be wallowed out, or you like to go deep into the lungs? I mean,
Well, I mean, it's just obvious. It's better. It just feels better. It looks cooler. It's more like, I don't know. Like, generally, you don't want it to be so big that it's like uncomfortable that you can't like do anything with it. But for the most part, I mean, like, yeah, big's cool. Looks cool. People like porn, so they like big dicks. So they go, oh wow, it's a big dick. Cool.